with Mars, we have this idea that it is very commonly called as Mangalik. Mangalik is basically certain combinations of Mars are present in the horoscope, whether they're in the 7th house, 8th house, couple of other years are there. So that causes a disturbance in the married life. Previously, it used to be believed that it will cause death to the spouse. Today, mostly divorce or separation. But there are rituals and pujas that can be done to pacify that, or there are combinations. For example, normally what they do is that there's a horoscope matching that can be done, whether that other individual also has similar Mangalik dosha, so it kind of cancels it out. So whenever somebody tells me that Gita says this, first question is, tell me the sloka, because the Gita is the most popular book, also is the most abused book.
Really?
People have their own understanding fed into the Gita. Gita ये भी बोल रहा है, वो भी बोल रहा है. Finally तो एक दिन पता चलेगा Gita मैंने one book will have for everything. Gita is wonderful text, but Gita is not at all an easy text. People have made it easy because they have their own understandings also they're fed into. Most people don't know Sanskrit. They read commentaries का भी commentaries पढ़ते हैं. And then they add up things and pick up 1-2 slokas from here and there and make up an idea. Acha, Gita may be saying that. Gita says a lot of things about a lot of things, by the way. Gita is a progression from chapter 1 to chapter 18. It is a progression.
This episode is a deep dive into the basics and slightly intermediate aspects of Vedic astrology. If you're someone who doesn't know anything about even astrology in general, I think this episode is a fantastic theoretical starting point. Promise you, this one's heavy. It'll teach you a lot about astrology. It will polish up your skills if you know the basics. And it's with a TRS All-Star. Rajarshi Nandy sir returns on TRS. Make sure you take notes for this one. It's one of the ultimate 101s on Vedic astrology on the Indian internet. Enjoy yourselves, guys, and keep learning with Rajarshi Nandy and TRS. The Emperor of Tantra is back. Rajarshi Nandy sir. Welcome back. We're not going to be talking only about Tantra in this one. Mm-hmm. We're doing an astrology 101.
Okay.
And I had a lot of chances to do ABCs about astrology, the advanced explanation of it with lots of people over the years.
Right.
I was waiting for the right person. And I didn't even know that you knew about astrology until we had a little phone call where you helped me out a bit. And we won't talk a lot about my personal chart and all that. But this particular conversation is mainly so that people just understand astrology in its most classical form.
Fundamentals.
Yeah. ABCs of it.
Right.
And then maybe we'll build upon it. I don't know whether it'll be a 1-hour conversation or a 3-hour conversation. So let's just start talking. Where would you like to begin? I do have a slightly Western question to begin with, which is that when someone's born on a particular date of the year, so say you're born on June 1st, I'm technically a Gemini, according to the Gregorian explanation of it. How did the Gregorian calendar come up? How did these Gemini, Libra, Pisces and all these signs come up there? Did they take it from the East? Did it spread out of the East? Has it developed parallelly? Do they follow the same kind of principles that we do? Or is it something completely different? Because whatever research I've ended up doing, I feel like there are some parallels, but it's like a slightly less detailed system of what we have in the East. Sorry if I confused you at the top of this podcast.
No, it's not confusing, but it's this covers a lot of ground.
Okay.
Your question. And before I start, Jai Ma Kamakhya, Jai Bhairav Baba. Okay. So I believe that astrology or what we call as Jyotisha has been an integral part of Hindu Dharma. Okay, to the extent that it is believed that in order to have expertise in Vedas, there has to be certain Vedanga, which is limbs of the Vedas, a person must know. And of these limbs, various things are there, Sanskrit and ritualism and a couple of other things, I'm not going into that. But one of the limbs is considered as Jyotisha. Jyotisha was considered as the eye of the Vedas. Okay, it gives you an ability to see beyond the normal. Okay. Now, development of Jyotish, when it comes to the West, I think it's possible that two aspects are there. Now, I can't be 100% sure of this because perhaps a historian will be able to tell you better. But there has been a parallel developments of astrology, both in ancient, West and as well as India. Plus, it is also possible that some parts of the astrological techniques that was there might have migrated from West to India. But once it came here, it not only got modified, it got, let's say, expanded to a level which was not there originally. Some of the techniques. Now, this is what scholars believe. I personally have no opinion either way. It doesn't matter whether it fully organically developed here or it developed, but there was some input from the West also. I think some of the astrologers do mention texts with this title of Yavana and all that. Yavana means the Greek texts and all that. So there could have been some cultural exchanges. Okay. Now, coming to the first point is that there is, however, a strong difference between the Western astrology. For the sake of this conversation, I'll use the word Western astrology to denote all that is in the West, while we have Jyotisha here. Okay. One of the primary differences is that, so the zodiac belt is an imaginary belt, by the way. Okay, looking at the stars and the nakshatras, so there are certain animal figures and all that have been created, and this was observed by people who are sort of sky watchers. It was independently observed in India, it was independently observed in the West, etc. So, but remember that it's an imaginary belt. So you are assuming that this is a belt like this. Okay, so and it is divided into what we call in our term the Rashis or the houses. Okay, 12 Rashis are there, 12 houses are there.
As in 12 signs in the West?
12 signs.
And for us it's 12 Rashis.
Rashis. Okay. Key difference is that the zodiac belt, there is okay, before that also, let me just say that at an ancient time in India, astrology was not divorced from mathematics. So if you did not know, there is a part called Phalita. Phalita means which is predictive. And there is a part called Ganit. Ganit means mathematics. So if you did not know the mathematics, you could not become an astrologer. It's not possible. Today you have softwares and this and that to make things. But those days you need to know how will you calculate the position, tentative position of the planets.
There's a saying I learned on the show. They say that mathematics is the language of the universe, which is so true.
Every subject is the language of the universe if you go to that depth. It's not just mathematics. If you develop the eyes, you will enjoy the orchestra very well. Okay. Just general statement.
Sure. No, I understand what you're saying.
So coming back to what we were discussing. So these, so the calculation part. So as I mentioned, there's a mathematics that is involved there. Okay. And there's a mathematics involved in the West also. So people who were sort of astronomers, obviously in astronomy there is mathematical ability that is required. Not everybody can do that. So only more or less those people, or those who had a scientific mindset, by the way, they were the people interested in things like astrology. Okay. So for example, I think if I'm not mistaken, even Newton had, while he was a great scientist, he also had many of these beliefs and he had written about these things. Okay. So it was something that was not divorced from each other. It was parallel to each other. If you were not good with looking at the skies and figuring out the constellations and things like that and the mathematics, you could not do this. Okay. Now, having said that, so there is a calculation based on which the zodiac is defined. Okay. Some mathematical calculation is there inherently. Here, there is something known as precision of equinoxes. I'm not going into the details of it. Okay. This is from astronomy. Anybody interested can, find out more of this. But so the zodiac is an imaginary belt. Now we, from the Hindu philosophers, they saw the zodiac in the background of the stars, the nakshatras. The stars are very far off. So stars are outside of our galaxy. They're very far off. Okay. So on the background of the stars, they defined the zodiac belt. Whereas the West did not do it this way. They defined the zodiac belt using some other parameters. Okay. Now this caused over long periods of time, this caused a difference in the tilt of the zodiacs. To the degree, this may all just bear with me for some time because this may all be a little but sounds technical, but it's not actually that difficult. So basically what happens is, effectively, the Western zodiac and the Jyotisha zodiac has about, I think, 23-24 degrees difference in them, in the tilt, which results in what? So if you are born in, so when you say a generic statement that I'm a Gemini or a Taurus or whatever it is, so first of all, the very average statement is that's taken as the position of the sun, okay, in the Western system. The sun is in Gemini, sun is in Taurus, so you are saying that you are in Taurus. But if you use the Hindu calculation, you might find that the position is different. Instead of Taurus, it may be in Aries.
I will have to just pause you here and make it slightly simpler. I've got what you're trying to say. When you're born, there's a map of the sky above you.
Right.
Now, for the map of the earth, you draw out the land, you draw out the mountains, you draw out the oceans. That's how you know where you are.
Correct.
In order to draw out the sky, you can only do that through the positions of the sun, of planets in your solar system, and of the stars.
Sort of.
Now, the stars can be divided. The entire map of the sky above you can be divided into 12 parts.
12 parts, yes.
And depending on where the sun is, where Mars is, where Venus is, that has certain astrological effects.
Correct.
Now, you're saying the difference between the Western and the Eastern way of looking at the same subject is that we have a 23-degree difference in the map. So the map has just slightly moved 23 degrees away.
Sort of. And this is, in Hindu system, we call the Ayanamsha. That's a term that's used, Ayanamsha. Basically, this 23-degree difference causes a difference in the position of the planets when you are trying to make a chart. Okay. Difference number one. Difference number two is that the West uses certain different techniques, at least the older astrological writings, little bit that I've gone through. I'm not extremely proficient in the Western system. It uses a different set of techniques, whereas the Hindus use a different set of techniques. We have wide variety of techniques because Jyotish has been developed over centuries by some of the finest minds, Parashara, Varaha Mihira, etc. They were fantastic people, excellent high IQ, terrific individuals. Okay, so as I said, they were also capable and knowledgeable in multiple other fields. In mathematics and things like that. So it went in parallel. So obviously somebody who's good in mathematics has to be highly intelligent.
There are international listeners. There are people who may not be open to the Eastern way of looking at things. But for the sake of understanding the subject much more in detail, I think at this point we should head straight into the Eastern breakdown of astrology.
Correct.
And I feel that whether or not you believe in the Eastern school of thought or the Western school of thought, by the end of this conversation, you'll have learned a lot and you'll be able to apply it in whatever format of astrology you're following. I'm also learning about these in this much detail for the first time.
Okay.
But before I let you continue, again, I'm going to give some basics here which I picked up from the show. And please correct me wherever you think I'm wrong. Like, you can interrupt. First rule is that when a baby is born, they note down the time, they note down the place, and obviously the date.
Right.
And that's the map of the sky that you draw out on your astrological chart.
Correct.
That's the basic. Then the other logic here is that each of these planets, the sun, each of these celestial bodies, like the sun, the moon, and the planets, and even their combinations, have a certain kind of effect on the astrological chart.
Correct.
BK Shivani on this show said that astrological charts are great representations of a soul's journey till the point they took this birth. In terms of all the karmas from the previous births land up as this astrological chart. And it's a likely scenario of what can happen in your life. But as you move forward in this lifetime, through your actions, through your karmas, through your sadhana, your meditations and disciplines, maybe you can even shift your astrological charts and you can make it better for yourself. Or if you do evil things, you can make it worse for yourself. So it's just the mapping of the soul's journey till that point. Now, I also know that it's difficult to change your astrological chart for the average everyday person who's going to office, coming back home, having a family, having things to do. So if you know about your own astrological chart, it just makes living slightly more convenient. Or you can anticipate that certain difficult phases are coming. And if you have a spiritual journey, if you're into Tantra, you'll be able to combine your practices with the best outcomes for your future. Have I missed out any point here from the basics?
No, most of it is correct, but the few points I look at it differently.
Sure.
So I'll explain them. More or less what you told is right. So basically, having covered the part about the difference, and also there are just one more line, the Western system uses certain different techniques than we do. Okay. Some of those have also been integrated into certain aspects of astrology in India, but that's more deeper. We'll go later into that if the conversation goes there. But coming back to...
It will.
Coming back to the topic. So basically, yeah, at the moment when it is born, when somebody is born for that matter, not just an individual, by the way, it could also be an event. So there are different branches of astrology in Hindu system. So one, there is the Jatakam, which is for the individual horoscope. Then there is something known as Muhurta. Muhurta means at this specific moment, what are the planetary combinations there? And from there you can make certain predictions. Or for example, suppose you are starting a company. Okay, the moment the company is getting registered, or you are entering into a new house, the moment you are entering into the new house, etc., the Graha conditions at that moment can tell you what is likely to happen in the future. Okay, so that's like a birth of a thing. Birth need not be an animate, it can be an inanimate object also. Looking at the time when an individual is taking oath, you can predict that how his party or that individual in oath in terms of, say, even a political party or somebody in some other capacity. You can say that how things are going to go. Okay. So not going into more details on this, but this is the broad outlook of things. Oh, and there is another aspect of Jyotisha, which is a bit rare, which is like a destiny of land masses. Okay, this is something I have not explored too much, but it is also there, which means that, so what is the destiny of this, say, Southeast Asia or certain parts of the world? So that has its own rules also. But that is the aspect of Jyotish that is least explored, more or less. The most common is individual horoscopes and, of course, muhurtas. Okay. Now, when a person is born, there's date, time, place, these things. From this, you can get a map of the skies. Map means basically, after the Rashis, there are 12 Rashis I mentioned. The next most important thing is the 9 Grahas. Okay.
12 houses, 12 signs.
12 signs, 12 Rashis. The signs of the Rashis, what you call, which is like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and all this same thing. Okay.
On an Indian astrological chart, do the 12 different houses represent different aspects of your life? Like I have heard that the first house represents your personality, second house represents your marriage.
Yes, of course. That is the whole basis using which you predict.
Okay.
But only Rashis are not enough. Next comes the Grahas. 9 Grahas are there. The Navagrahas. So it is important here because to mention this. So the word Graha means, it comes from the root word in Sanskrit, which means to grasp. Okay, something that grasps your mind and governs you, basically. So are these actually the physical planets? Yes and no. Both are important to understand while we take the position of the physical planets, but let us, for the sake of discussion, assume that a Graha is like the astral projection of one of the physical planets.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah. That is why you are able to also manipulate the Grahas a bit. That comes in the last part of Jyotish. And by the way, not just in the East, in Western occult also, they have ways of invoking planets. Okay. So what exactly is it that is invoking? If you're doing certain sadhanas for Jupiter, for example, Brihaspati, which is Jupiter, suppose. Okay. Is it the physical planet? Is it changing anything? Nothing. But everything has its own, let us just take a projection of itself. That projection, which contains the essence, the tattva of the graha, can interact with you and cause certain changes one way or the other, depending on how you are approaching it.
For example, Saturn is Shani, is the god spoken about in the Puranas.
No, it's not like that. So God means not in the god. So these are grahas.
Is the Devata spoken about in the poem?
Devatas are higher than this. Devata means if you say Shiva or Ganpati, they're much higher than this.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
This is just personification of the planets.
Personification, correct word.
Okay.
Personification of the planets. Let's look at it that way. Okay.
And it has certain effects.
It can have effects if you approach it in a certain manner, positive and negative both. It is an accumulation of, right, as you said, the birth chart gives you an accumulation of what karmas you might have done till that point of time. Okay. Now what happens, as I was mentioning in the other podcast, is that 99% of the people, I think, I don't know whether I mentioned it, so 99% of the people lead their life just as a reaction to actions they have performed. So when I get a question from somebody that what is the purpose of my life, I'm afraid to say out of 100 people, 99 have no purpose. But you are just reacting to things that have happened. That's all. Okay. Purpose and all that comes in later. For very few people, they have it. Most are just, what purpose? You finish school, you go into college, then you work, then you get married, then you have kids, then you grow older, then you die. So that's all. कौन सा purpose है? So it's just reaction. Sometimes you are happy, sometimes you are sad. There's that and all that. So what happens, what I mean by that is that because of the momentum of actions you have done, more or less your destiny is, in broad lines, it is set. Which means that if you look at a horoscope at the moment of birth and it is indicating, suppose, that this person will have a bad marriage. Okay. There are almost 99 to 100% chance that he will go through bad relationships or marriage in the context of the times. Okay. Say context of the times means, suppose in say 500 years ago, somebody is seeing a chart and saying that your spouse is going to die. Okay. 500 years ago, we did not have divorces and all that as much. So today, spouse will not die, but divorce ho jayega. Something like that. Okay. So more or less, that what I mean is that because the accumulated momentum of karmas are such that the chart kind of 80 to 90% will sort of give you a broad indication of where it is going, and it will happen that way. The intensity may differ, but the basic lines are kind of set, because at any given point, a person is not alone, or he is not outside of time. There is a past and there is the future. The pressure from the past and the pull from the future is what makes you at this moment in time. And only Kal Bhairav can take you out of time.
Okay. Before we go into a very deep conversation about Kal Bhairav and how deities are also a part of this, again, I have to boil it down to the ABCs here. Do you want to talk about the 12 houses right now? Or do you want to talk about the planets and all the effects?
Yeah, sure. But before that, there's one more small aspect that needs to be mentioned. So there are 3 types of karmas, more or less. Okay. For easy understanding. And it plays a part in the Jyotisha, and it's relevant to the question of how your birth chart affects you. Okay. So first is, there's one part of the karma that is drira. Drira means fixed. Okay. Certain combinations can indicate in certain individuals, it may not be in everybody, that some karma is fixed. Fixed karma means you just have to bear with it. You can't do anything about it. It cannot be changed. You will have to face it. Nobody in the world can change it. Then there is some part of the karmas which are drira adrira, which means that fixed and unfixed. Which means basically, fundamentally, it translates to this, that if you do some kind of upaya pariharam means some specific mantras or some puja, etc., depending on the horoscope, there is a chance that part of it will be negated, and maybe certain, say, intensity was coming at 10, it comes down to 3 or 2 or something. It's more bearable. Okay. And then the third is the adrira, which is not fixed. Not fixed karmas are just showing a tendency. They're very easy to change. You don't need to chant or do any ritual. All you need is a strong mind. You just want the willpower. Using a willpower, you can change it. So these are 3 types of karmas that will reflect in a horoscope.
I've been advised not to understand the laws of karmas that deeply.
Okay.
By Gauranga Das Prabhu. He was on the show last week.
Okay.
And when I kept deep diving into questions related to karma, he said, don't try understanding it fully. He spoke about these things. He spoke about prarabdha karma and all those aspects as well. But he's like, in the Gita, there's a part that says karma is such a complex subject to understand that you'll go crazy if you try understanding those.
I have a different perspective of this. So what I think that aspect is, so karmana gahana gati, there's a particular phrase in the Gita. So currents of karma are very deep. Yes, that is true to the extent that if you want to find out that I am sitting here and I suddenly have a headache, what is the karmic reason for me to get a headache? You will not find that reason. Because there might have been something. But what I am talking about is something that is very fundamental to understanding Jyotish. Okay, there's nothing the way I look at it. So these three, if you don't understand, you will not understand that why is it that certain things can be changed and certain things cannot be changed. And I just remembered, I think I had read one of those cartoon strips long back. I used to read Kelvin and Hobbes, and he makes this wonderful statement. I forgot that, God give me the strength to what cannot be changed, that you enjoy it, or something like that. It's a very fantastic line that was there. So there are certain aspects which you can't change in certain individuals. Okay. There are certain combinations. And I've seen that in the course of when I have done readings and all that. These days I do very less, but when I've done them, so that nobody can change. It doesn't matter. You can go to all the temples in the world, go to every single spiritual person in the world, every person, jayega hi nahi, hoga hi nahi.
If you're only meant to live for 39 years of your life, you'll die at age 39. That's one example of something like this.
Let's say sort of, it depends. It's not that simple.
Okay.
There are certain combinations of grahas which, if present, and I'll not go into details of that, because the problem with astrology though is that right about when you start combinations, everybody opens their chart first thing. Okay. That's the last thing you should do, because you will never be objective when you are doing your own analysis. You have to learn from other people. Okay. People with whom you have no emotional connect. That will give you the lesson. Anyway, so certain combinations are there which, if present, it indicates that it's a very fixed karma.
Can you give an example of a karma which can be changed through willpower?
So many things. For example, I'm growing fat. I need to become thin. All right, start exercising, eat less, fast. Willpower is acting. See, in the yogic format, as I was just telling you, there's the physical body, there is the vital plane where there's the astral body, and there's the mind. A perfectly working yogi is one where the mind controls the vital, your emotional, and the emotions and the vital body controls your physical body. But for people, what happens? Just the ulta. Mind has no control. So your emotions that control A to Z. I feel like eating. I feel like going out with my friends. I feel like enjoying, etc. That's all your emotional talk.
Okay. And that's the goal of yoga, to have complete control over your mind.
Yes. And do you know what is the in another aspect, another way of looking at it, this vital power that is there. Who is the greatest representative of this vital force? Hanumanji. What does he do? Initially, when he's jumping over the ocean, he doesn't know what powers he has. Then he's told, then he gets it. Okay. And he sublimates it whole to the feet of Lord Rama. So, basically, the vital has tremendous power, but it should not make its own judgment. It puts itself into something higher. In this case, say the mind, or in the case of Lord Hanuman, he puts it to Rama. Okay. So the moment that is done, basically the idea is that don't let your emotions make the judgment. Okay. Emotions are a tremendous force. Nothing in this world can happen without emotions. But if you allow it to be your master, then it is a terrible master. Its role is that it should be in control of the mind, because the mind is objective. But that rarely happens in humanity.
As in, the mind should be able to control the emotions and not the other way
mind
around.
should give an order and the emotions should follow. But that's very difficult to achieve. That is if you already achieve that, then everybody will fall at your feet. You are already a saint.
Have you achieved?
Oh no, forget me. I am just an ordinary person. Okay. I am just ordinary person. That's all.
I probably have spoken to 2 or 3 people on this show who I believe have come close to it. I'm not going to take names, but like of everyone I've spoken. And these are obviously like spiritually inclined people who I think may have come a little close to it.
Possible.
Yeah.
You meet a lot of spiritual people, so.
It's the goal of yoga. Union between.
That's one goal of yoga. Let's put it this way. Because everything is, the more you look, the more you see that there are things.
Okay. I'll let you take it forward. Where do you want to continue?
So, with these understanding that there are 3 types of karmas. Now, we spoke of the Rashis. There are the 12 Rashis we spoke of. 12 signs that are there, the Zodiac Signs. And then there are the 9 Grahas. And I told you that Grahas are basically graspers of consciousness. It is very important to understand that.
Do you want to name the grahas?
Yeah, so if you speak in English, so graha is not exactly the planet, let me tell you this way. So that's why sun is also a graha. Okay, so I'm not talking about astronomy here. Okay, it's from the Jyotish point of view. So the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and how much? Six. No? Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. Then Rahu and Ketu are also there. Okay, two of them. These do not have physical presence. Okay, so each of these Rahu and Ketu are two of the nodes. Nodes means, so the moon is traveling around the earth, right? So there is it's like it's a point in space in calculation where it changes its direction. Northern direction is Rahu, southern direction is Ketu. So it doesn't have a physical presence.
I think an easy way to understand that is think of the head and tail of a serpent.
Yeah. So that is big. So this is, I'm talking about the calculation part of it. Okay. And when we see the head and tail of a serpent, plus Rahu is one of the most powerful grahas. Okay. In this age specifically, as the ages go, Rahu becomes more powerful. So sun, for example, sun is the first of the planets. So basically sun represents certain qualities. So one of the qualities could be sun may represent the government. Sun represents father. Leadership. Fame comes from sun. If sun is positive, then it can give, it can cure from many diseases. Including things like, for example, if there is certain people have patches on the skin and things like that. So there is some stories where certain people, so those were cured by worship of sun, etc. So like that, sun, but most importantly, sun will give you a lot of fame if sun is positive for an individual. Okay, there's a lot of fame. Karna used to be a worshipper of Surya. Okay,
but so when you're saying positive for an individual, you mean the combination of sun with which house / Rashi?
Yeah, there is then the more complicated thing that comes, that when is a graha positive and when is a graha negative. Okay. In this, there are certain places where the graha will become more powerful and some places where the graha becomes weak. So simply speaking, sun becomes very powerful when it is in Aries, Mesh, first house, okay, of the zodiac. And it becomes very weak when it is in Tula. Tula is Libra, which is 7th. Just opposite to that. Okay, it becomes very weak. So because of the strength of the graha, it will have its own power and behavior pattern will change.
Of the human being involved?
No.
Of the graha.
Of the graha. Okay. And I told you that what graha means grasper. So accordingly, when sun is influencing an individual at a particular phase of time, say 3 years or 4 years, those properties it will transfer into the individual.
Gotcha. Understood. Okay.
That is how it grasps the consciousness.
That's why they
and makes you do things.
That's why they say things like, oh, your sun is now in Gemini. That's why this kind of effect. Oh, now your Venus is in Aries, etc. I gotta pause you here, and I know that this is pissing off some viewers who already know about astrology, but I also gotta talk to like more basic viewers.
Yeah.
Autobiography of a Yogi has an entire chapter on astrology where they talk about how every object in the world has a kind of, you can think of it as an electromagnetic energy or a spiritual energy that it gives out. Like how light has a dual nature of like being a wave form as well as photons. So in the same way, everything, like say the planets have a solid nature, which is as the physical planet, and then they have an energy that they're giving out.
Correct.
You can think of it as in the same way that every big object has gravity, or every object in the world has gravity, but when an object is huge, it has more gravity. In the same way, when an object is huge, it has a deeper cosmic effect on a human being's life. And that object doesn't want to be negative or positive. It just is. And that's where this aspect of grahas comes in.
Correct.
Okay. Anything you want to mention?
No, not much. But more or less, these 9 grahas are the fundamentals of Jyotisha.
Okay. Now I think you should mention each one little bit.
Okay. So sun is like that, as it say fame and things like that. On the other hand, when to just give an example, suppose, so one of the other things on the negative side, sun can also denote ego. Okay. Somebody with a very strong sun may project a very strong ego, or even may misrepresent it as being very arrogant, because sun is super confident. Okay. On the other hand, when sun is weak, lacks confidence and maybe internally insecure. I have seen horoscopes like that. So basically, they will be, again, a graha is, to clarify, a graha is never independent in the sense that there are other aspects of it. It's like chemistry. Multiple grahas may be in the same house. Some graha may have something known as drishti, effect, sight. So each graha can also see the house that is 7 distance from it, just opposite.
Opposite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some grahas are special drishtis. Okay, we'll go into that.
This is details of astrology.
This is actually, these are all basics of astrology. It's not even details,
fine.
but
Okay, go on.
So sun, so it creates that sense of insecurity, can create an insecurity sense in the individual, and the thing is that, for example, if sun is weak, they get affected by praise very easily, good or bad. If you praise them, they become very happy. Or if you criticize them a bit, they become very disturbed. Whereas when the graha is stronger, it is more stable. It is not, theek hai, praise ke liye koi baat nahi. Criticism also, it doesn't take that seriously. But it may project an image of ego or arrogance. It depends on the overall horoscope. Okay. At a very deep level, astrology also has its own levels. At a very deep spiritual level, sun also represents the Atma inside an individual. It is the king of the solar system. The Atma is the king of your life. Like that.
Your soul.
At another level, sun is Shiva. But it can also be Rama. Depends on the horoscope. Okay. So
what does that mean?
So these come in later on. So you have, suppose there is an affliction to sun in the horoscope I'm seeing, and I see that it needs to be rectified, or some way it can be cured or something like that. So how do you do that? There are 3 ways in which you can do that. One is that you do certain activities related to that graha that makes the graha favorable towards you. Okay. So for example, some government agency or government related thing, you make some donations or you do some work. Sun is connected to the government. Sun becomes happy. But there is, suppose, some other kind of combination in the chart with respect to sun. So I say that no, this is not enough. There you need the help of forces, higher forces. Okay. So how you need the help of devatas. Devatas are higher than these grahas. But the grahas can map to certain devatas partial energies to some degree. So depending again on the position of the sun, I may say that worship Shiva or worship Bhairava or worship Lord Rama. Rama is of the solar dynasty, okay, depending on the position of the sun. Or worship a specific Mahavidya.
Like a Devi.
Each graha can map to a lot of things. See, these 9 grahas will map to everything. If you know, it can map to everything. It is the capacity of the astrologer to find out that what exactly is the mapping happening. And this is not exactly a science. It's more like an art. Correctly find out. So a good astrologer must also have a certain degree of experience and intuition. Okay. After sun, let's go to moon. Perhaps the most important graha in the horoscope, if you ask me, more than even the sun. Okay. Moon is your mind. Moon is your mother. Moon is water. Moon is milk. Okay. These things. Moon is food items also. Certain things. Various other list of things are there. Moon, the graha itself is something that fluctuates. So there is Purnima and then there is Amavasya. So exactly like the human mind. Today I'm happy. Tomorrow I'm very sad. Day after again I'm happy. Then I'm sad. So the moon is like that. Changing like that. So the moon becomes very powerful when exalted, when it is in Taurus.
Exalted means what?
Exalted means maximum power.
Okay.
Vrishabha. And it becomes very weak when it is in Scorpio. Just 7 houses separate. Okay. A strong moon can indicate somebody who has a lot of emotional self-control and who has the capacity to enjoy even in stressful times. That inner stability, but not just a dry stability. Bliss, because it's liquid. Moon is water. So that sense of happiness and joy also is governed by moon.
Are you okay giving names of like celebrities or?
No.
Okay.
No individual charts I'll go into. But let's just say that, moon gives you that that feeling of contentment inside. A strong moon. Whereas a weak moon plus moon allows you to extract joy and enjoyment from a wide range of things if the moon is strong. So to give an example, a person with a very strong moon, even if he falls in the drain, फिर भी he may not panic. Right now I can't change my circumstantial situation. ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, उसमें मजा आ रहा है, ठीक है, आई एम फाइन, उतना कुछ नहीं, समय होगा तो देखा जाएगा. Moon is weak, the slightest amount of disturbance happens, oh my god, what the hell is happening, I can't take this. ठीक है. And being in so even more second step of analysis, so being Scorpio, being a sign, Scorpio is a very interesting sign. So it's governed by Mars, so there could be, how does somebody react to a disturbance? One way of reacting is that you could internally curse yourself that, okay, things are very bad. Or you could just throw around a lot of disturbance to everybody around. I am disturbed, but I want to throw it happens to people. Okay, ये क्यों हुआ, वो क्यों हुआ, ऐसा क्यों हुआ, ऐसा क्यों हुआ. It doesn't matter whether the person you are telling is responsible or not, but more or less you create that environmental disturbance can be created. Okay, now these get modified a lot because obviously a graha is never normally alone. There will always be some aspect or some other graha, something like that, and those will modify the characteristics. I'm just talking about a very pure graha condition, and now almost no chart has this, and this is important to mention because a lot of your listeners are going to say, oh, my moon is like this, but I'm not behaving like this, or I'm behaving like that, or etc. That's because there will be all other grahas. It's like chemistry, you add things and final product comes in something else. Jyotish is also like that. It's never going to be one graha alone. I'm just talking about the basic qualities.
Sure.
After moon, let's go to Mercury. Mercury is so moon, by the way, also connects to the divine mother, to the feminine. Okay. Depending on the position of the moon, it could be various characteristics of the Devi. Which form of Devi, whether it's Somya, mild form, whether it's aggressive form, whether it's Kali, whether it's Chamunda, whether it's Tara, position of the moon can govern these things. Okay. And Vishnu avatars also connect to them. By the way, like I said, sun is connected to Rama, moon is connected to Krishna. So Mercury is the graha, Buddha is the graha that is considered to be youthful. It's perpetually youthful. It's like a prince. If sun is the king and moon is the queen of the horoscope, then Buddha is the prince. He is eternally in the teenage or just cross teenage phase. He doesn't grow up beyond that. So he's very playful. He's extremely good in comedy. Okay. He has a remarkable memory. Buddha has to be strong for a person who knows multiple languages. Without that, you cannot learn languages. It's tremendous memory. Okay. He hears something, he remembers it. He may not understand it though. That's a different topic. That goes to different graha, that domain. But he will be very good with it. Certain positions he may be very good in communication. Communication things are governed by Buddha. And certain positions of Buddha can also make a person very good in yoga. And this is very strange, it may sound, certain combinations of Buddha can also represent things like avichara or black magic. Okay. Buddha is fundamentally, as I said, it's a youthful graha. And also, by the way, Buddha also governs certain other aspects like people who suffer from whether it's impotency or things like that, or confusion regarding sexuality. These are all governed by Buddha. Okay, Buddha has this capacity. It's very playful. It's very playful graha, but also very powerful graha because, as I said, Buddha's blessing, if it's there on somebody, they are very good in remembering things. Extremely sharp memory will be there. They'll be very good with languages. They can learn subjects very fast. Things like that. They'll do it playfully. There's no stress. Just like that, they'll learn. So, but not, as I said, all these characteristics that I'm talking of the grahas, all of them will not manifest in an individual. Again, everything gets modified with the position. Where exactly is it and what other grahas are combining with it. Okay. So, Buddha becomes very powerful when it is in Kanya Rashi, which is Virgo in English. Okay. And it becomes very weak when it is in Meena or Pisces. Okay. Kanya Rashi's Buddha is the strongest.
All the positive traits of the Buddha come out, and if it's in Pisces, all the negative traits.
Negative, weaker traits, and there will be disturbances, various other things. See, Buddha is so important. Buddha is communication. Half the time when you have miscommunication, jhagda ho raha hai, ye ho raha hai, Buddha is playing some role or the other.
Or even all forms of growth actually happen with communication.
Yeah, communication is very important. For example, what you do as a communication is a significant part of it. So, Buddha is very important for anything related to communication. Also, Buddha is very important. Achha, Buddha's other thing is that if Buddha blesses an individual, you'll be very good in academics. So, studies and subjects and all that, you'll be very good. Often you'll find people who have done multiple PhDs and all that with certain combination of Buddha. Okay, not all, but certain combination. As I said, Buddha is that he's very youthful, he's young. That energy is there in Buddha. Buddha connects to Vishnu very strongly. Okay, Lord Vishnu. Position of Buddha will tell you which form of Vishnu. Buddha also connects to, among the Devi forms, connects to Tripur Sundari, Lalita Tripur Sundari. She is a Mahavidya. And Buddha can also connect to Vatuka Bhairava because he's somebody who's younger. So these are things related to Buddha. Let's go to the next, say Mars, Mangal. Mars is the warrior among the Grahas. Mars represents that martial spirit. Mars represents the ability, aggression. Mars represents fighting ability. Mars represents fire. Okay. Mars is the general among the army.
Okay? Virat Kohli. Sure, he has a very strong Mangal.
All sportsmen who are into physical sports will have a strong Mars. It's impossible to be in physical sports, whether it's cricket, football or anything, without a strong Mars.
Or the military?
Military too. Police, military, etc. Okay. These are all governed by Mars, strong Mars. So Mars becomes very powerful when it is in Makar. Makar is Capricorn. And becomes very weak when it is in Cancer. Okay. Cancer is Karkat Rashi. Because it's governed by moon, so it's not particularly a very graha that and that's emotional or things like that, too watery. Okay. Mars connects to certain deities. One of the first deity is Hanumanji. Okay. Then there is Kandha or Murugan, who's the general of the army. Okay. But Mars also connects to Narasimha of the Vishnu avatars. Mars also connects to Bagalamukhi among the Dasa Mahavidyas. Now,
Which one?
Bagalamukhi Devi. Okay, with Dasa Mahavidyas. Which specific form it will connect to depends on the horoscope.
All these are warrior deities.
All these are warrior deities. Mars also connects to Chamunda. It's a very fierce form of the mother. But it depends on certain other combinations, not standalone. Okay. When Mars is strong in an individual, they are normally capable of not just physically strong, but they also, what I've seen is that there's a confidence in this physicality. Okay. They're very confident. And that also makes them pure Mars I'm talking about. So there is self-control also. But pure Mars is very rare. The moment Mars is touched by few other graphs, his behavior will change. For example, if Mars has any contact with Rahu, it becomes like a warlike condition. Yuddha yoga. Okay. Put them into a conflict. Bas, straight they'll go into it. Singular Mars will be very self-controlled. It will only enter if at all is needed. Just as much as it is needed to get result, it will come out. But Mars combined with other things will behave differently.
Is this related to Manglik?
Certain positions of Mars make an individual Manglik.
Is it true that when you marry a Manglik, it's bad for the partner and all these?
Yeah.
Okay, according to astrology.
Yeah. So, but there are ways to negate that also.
Do you want to address that later in the episode? Or
We'll just briefly touch upon it, but not too much detail. So basically, before I go to that, so Mars, when it becomes weak, it can have, first of all, there could be, Mars also represents blood, by the way. Okay. So there could be blood related problems, plus there will be a weak constitution. Okay. And again, when a graha is weak, it is fundamentally insecure. So that individual will have certain degree of insecurity with respect to his own physical strength. And that can manifest in very weird ways, by the way. Which means sometimes what happens is if you're insecure about certain thing, to cover up your insecurity, you may try to be proactively more aggressive. So a stronger Mars will have more self-control because he's confident of his power. A weaker Mars, even at the slightest amount of disturbance, हाँ चलो मारपीट करते कुछ, something like that, will try to behave in a way that is very, aggressive. It's basically because deep down there's an insecurity, so you have to kind of prove more to yourself subconsciously, no, I am very strong. That psychology works with the Grahas through the individual. Okay. With Mars, we have this idea that it is very commonly called as Mangalik. Mangalik is basically certain combinations of Mars are present in the horoscope, whether they're in the 7th house, 8th house, couple of other years are there. So that causes a disturbance in the married life. Previously, it used to be believed that it will cause death to the spouse. Today, mostly divorce or separation. Okay, but there are rituals and pujas that can be done to pacify that. Or there are combinations. For example, normally what they do is that there's a horoscope matching that can be done, whether that other individual also has similar Mangalik doshas, so it kind of cancels it out to a degree. Okay, not fully, but to a degree. So basically, you'll still fight but stay together. So that kind of thing. And then there are cancellations of yogas also there in chart, which is another aspect. Just because a Mars is in a certain position, it's showing Mangalik. It may not show the result if there are some other combinations present. So like this. Okay. But Mars is so all things related to military, police, etc. is governed by Mars. And the deities that I mentioned, these are the ones who can control Mars. If it is weak, if it is negative, if it needs some other disturbances manifest in it, then we approach these deities and we worship them. Okay.
Like for example, Hanumanji gives you self-belief.
Yeah, Hanumanji. See, deities are more powerful than the grahas. Remember this always. So when you are approaching a devata for a specific graha related problem, he can solve that problem. But if you approach the devata for spirituality, then he goes even deeper into spirituality. He will take you beyond. He can take you beyond any of the deities. Okay. One more thing is that Mars in a female horoscope can represent partner, boyfriend, things like that. Okay. Can represent partner, boyfriend. Now let's come to Venus. So Venus has this very interesting thing. Venus is also known as Kavya. Kavya means poetry. So Venus fundamentally gives you the ability, all that is artistic in the world is governed by Venus. Okay. Aesthetics is governed by Venus, whether it is wonderful aesthetics or weird aesthetics. Okay. Whether it is a classical painting or whether it is a very difficult modernistic or postmodernistic painting जो किसी को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, that also is Venus. But different positions of the Venus. It could be that the Venus is weaker, a weaker Venus, but other combinations are there. So a very famous painting, but you're not able to understand कि ये हो क्या रहा है. Whereas a classical painting could be a very classically placed, nicely placed Venus. Okay. So like that. So Venus governs, in general, it governs women. Venus governs things of beauty, whether the way you are dressing up, whether you're using a perfume and all that, all these are Venus. Jewelries, everything is Venus. Poetry is Venus. The ability to write poetry is Venus. Venus also governs Tantra Shastra.
I wonder who has a strong Venus. So.
No, there are other grahas also that govern, but Venus has one particular governing capacity of Tantra. And this comes from, Venus is among the grahas, Venus is one of the gurus, by the way. There are only 2 gurus in the grahas. Venus is one of them. And Venus comes from Shukracharya. We find the reference to Shukracharya many times in our scriptures. Shukracharya was one of the Rashis. Okay. And he was the guru of the Asuras and the Daityas. Okay. Shukracharya was born in the lineage of Bhrigu. Bhrigu was one of the Rashis. Bhrigu. And Shukracharya was a terrific worshipper of Shiva. It is Shukracharya who gave us the Mrityunjaya mantra. It is said that he went to Kashi and for 5,000 years he worshipped Shiva in a normal way of Paddhati of worship, and nothing happened. Then he said, I'll do severe austerities. For 1000 years he worshipped Shiva, but making sure that he only consumes the smoke from burned grains, nothing else, only smoke in your eyes, continuously for 1000 years while chanting the mantra of Shiva, Sanskrit mantra. After 1000 years, they say that there's an anecdotal story. The other Grahas and the other gods, the gods came to see, okay, how is he able to do this much amount of sadhana? How is he able to do this much amount? So gods came and they were like, but they themselves cannot do this much. What Shukra is doing, just inhaling smoke. Can you imagine? Man, his almost eyes are blind, kind of, with smoke and all that, and is continuously worshipping. After 1000 years, they tell Shiva that please give him whatever he wants. Stop this, because if he keeps doing that, he alone will control everything. Shiva appears before him and tells him, I'll teach you one thing. I'll teach you the Mrita Sanjivani Vidya, how to bring the dead back to life. Something that no one else has got. He gives him that. Shukra uses that then to revive the Asuras during the battle. Okay. So he is able to bring back all the divine beings and all that. So then the Pramathas or the Shivaganas, they come to Shiva and say that he's reviving all the Asuras back. All the wounds are going and there again. So how will we defeat them ever? Then Shiva tells Nandi, who is Shiva's greatest bhakta, does that go and catch him and bring him here. Okay, so he gets Shukra back to Shiva, digests Shukra, takes him inside his body, eats. Inside the body of Shiva, he is seeing that all the 14 lokas are there, universes is there, everything is there. Gods are there, asuras are there, whatever is happening outside, everything is inside his body only. Okay. And in this, he's not able to come out of that state. Because they say that I think for hundreds of years he stayed inside the body of Shiva. Okay. And the asuras obviously became weaker because he was not using the Vidya to revive them anymore. So the gods started winning. After that, finding no other excuse, no other way out, he was able to come out from the sexual organ of Shiva. Then Shiva told him that by this act you become like my son. Okay. And you will have mastery over certain aspects. So so he gets the name Shukra. Shukra, the word also means semen. Shukracharya. He has, Venus controls everything about sexuality. In the sense, normal sexuality. Okay. Everything, whether a person, looking at the condition of Shukra, you can find out A to Z about a person's various things about his sexuality and things like that. Okay, including even those aspects which are, for example, used in Tantra, some of the aspects where Maithuna is used in Tantra, whether it can be done on, whether an individual will be able to do it or not, depends on the Shukra.
Wow.
Okay. Shukra knows the Vidya to revive somebody. If Shukra is strong in a person, certain things, there are practices they can do by which, even if they may be aging, they still look young. It is the capacity of Shukra to give you that. Shukra is fundamentally passion. See, Moon and Shukra, both are likeness, but there is a difference. Both are feminine grahas, but there is a difference. Moon is that general bliss and happiness. बहुत मजा आ रहा है लाइफ में, सब ठीक है, इससे आगे नहीं जाना है, पीछे नहीं जाना, वह मजा आ रहा है, everything is fine. Shukra is passion. This is what he applies in the sadhana. He says that no, I have to get Shiva. उसके लिए like mad he does a sadhana. Everybody is stunned. How the hell is he able to do this? So much of penance, austerity. Okay, this is the capacity of Shukra. Without Shukra, it is very difficult to succeed in the world because you don't have passion for something. If you don't have passion, you are not going to put in that effort. And passion could be for anything. Passion could be for sadhana also.
And once passion's in something, it doesn't feel like effort.
Exactly. Then it is not work anymore. Anybody who has done something terrific will need to have some blessings of Shukra.
Venus will have to be in a good place in the chart.
Yes.
For their material growth.
Correct. Not just material, that's what. There are certain combinations. There's a particular combination of Venus, Saturn and Ketu present in the chart. It shows a tapasvi yoga. You are able to do tapasya, which means that you are able to do penances, hard penances. Okay. Because you like doing it. Once, as you said, once you start liking something, then it is not effort anymore. Then no one has to prod you to go to office or go to school or something like that. You on your own will do it. Okay, that is the blessing of Shukra. And it's very, very important in many things.
On a very low level, I know that if your Venus is in a good place, you are said to have a lot of sex in your life.
That is one way of looking at it. So basically, what happens is that two things. Venus does govern sex, but also it governs for a man, Venus also governs his wife or girlfriend or something like that. Whatever, his partner. Okay. Venus by itself is women. All women are governed by Venus. In fact, by looking at the position of Venus, you can make out even that what are the physical features and various other things.
Really?
A lot of things. Okay. So not just Venus, other grahas are there, but Venus is a key component of it.
Okay.
And so Venus connects to Lakshmi, Mahalakshmi. And also among the Mahavidyas, Venus connects to Kamalatmika as a Mahavidya. Okay, that's the tantric form of Lakshmi. But again, a graha is never alone. So once it has influence of other grahas, its character and behavior changes. Venus, by the way, also controls things like films and all that. You can never be famous as a film actor or somebody who's well known until your Venus is well placed and connected to certain places in the horoscope.
Okay.
That visibility, that's the thing. Venus, that connection of a lot of people, okay, that kind of fame with respect to films and things like that, all are somehow governed by Venus. One of the artistic fields, media, for example, also Venus to a degree. Okay. After Venus, let's go to Jupiter. Okay. Jupiter is the guru of the Devatas. Okay. Jupiter is masculine in nature. Jupiter is guru in the traditional sense. He's heavy. Okay. There's a certain gravity and a weight in Jupiter. Somebody who's influenced by Jupiter, the moment they sit in a room, you will understand that Jupiter is strong. So they'll not joke around and all that. It's not intimidating kind of heavy, but you feel that okay, this person knows a lot, or this person has a lot of depth in him. That is Jupiter. Okay. Venus, by the way, also governs jewels, diamond and all that. Those business you cannot enter. Jewelry business you cannot enter without Venus influence, especially gemstones and rare stones and rare materials and all that things. Now Jupiter is the guru of the grahas. Okay. He teaches the devatas, not just the grahas. He teaches the gods how to fight, whatever other vidyas have to be taught, etc. He's that way. He represents the Vedas and the Vedanta. He is the traditional path. Okay, completely. Jyotish and all traditionally, all under his domain, his influence. Jupiter also represents wisdom. Mercury, I had mentioned, that has the ability to learn a lot of things. But you may learn a thing, whether you are digesting it or not, that governs Jupiter. Whether you are realizing it or not. Okay, that is Jupiter's domain. Jupiter represents gold. It represents lot of wealth. It represents banking systems. So very often clean wealth, but it's very important. Jupiter is fundamentally ethical. It doesn't like non-ethical things because it's a guru of the grahas. It will never do any shortcut business. Ethics is very important. Okay. Jupiter also, weight is there. So there are certain combinations of Jupiter. If it's present, then people tend to put on weight. There's a certain heaviness. Heaviness in their aura, heaviness also physically can happen. Okay. Jupiter becomes very strong when it is placed in Cancer, Karkata Rashi, and it becomes very weak when it's placed in Capricorn. Okay, just the opposite of Mars. Jupiter can connect to any graha, any deity for that matter. But certain placements, depending on placements, it can represent Shiva or it can represent a very cosmic form of Vishnu. Okay, very large form of Vishnu. Jupiter can also represent a very cosmic form of Ganpati. Very powerful form of Ganpati. So there are more details of it. which Stotra of Ganpati will connect to Jupiter in this form. And from the Tantric point of view, Jupiter represents Matara. Okay. So Jupiter has these characteristics. Jupiter's blessing on an individual means he'll be very deeply learned. So subjects like, I would say, for example, say physics. These are all governed by Jupiter. Or philosophy, 100% Jupiter. Without a strong Jupiter, that depth will not come. Okay. Jupiter has that they're very sincere. Jupiter doesn't like shortcuts and do numberi kaam nahi hoga Jupiter. Okay. It's very ethical, very sincere, hardworking. And Jupiter's blessing is very important to digest experiences. Correctly digest the experience. Spirituality, Jupiter plays a very important role. Whatever other grahas may be, they have their own role to play, but Jupiter plays a role in the sense that Jupiter puts you in the right path, no shortcuts, hardworking, and it helps you to finally expand and digest experiences. That's one of the key things about Jupiter. I already mentioned Ma Tara links to Jupiter. Certain conditions of Jupiter, she has to be worshipped to bring the person out. On the negative side, Jupiter's another fundamental quality is that it expands. Jupiter likes expansion. Okay. A negative Jupiter can also bring in diseases, by the way, in an individual, like cancer and things like that. Sudden uncontrolled expansion of cells or something like that. Jupiter likes sweet things. A person's strong Jupiter, we can more or less say, will like sweet as a taste. Jupiter also, there are karakattvas of grahas. Karakatva means lordships. What does it control? There are two types of lordships of a graha, which is till now what I was telling you was the Naisargika karakatva, which means natural lordship. So Jupiter naturally lords gold. Jupiter naturally lords certain things. But in an horoscope, it may have some functional lordship also, which depends. Later we'll go into that. But so Jupiter, because of this, if Jupiter is afflicted, you may see diseases like sugar, blood sugar, and things like that. These are also governed. Hormonal problems are governed by Jupiter sometimes. Okay, some kind of hormonal imbalance or things like that. In a woman's horoscope, Jupiter may govern her husband. So you can understand the basic nature of the husband by looking at the position of the Jupiter. Okay, and general wealth and wisdom and all these things are there. So it's the Deva Guru. Then we come to Saturn.
Shani.
The
most interesting one for a lot of viewers.
Shani is fundamentally a graha of discipline and taskmaster. It likes hard work. It likes people who do hard work. A positive Shani means they will be very hardworking. Negative Shani means they will be extremely lazy. Okay. Lazy, indolent, aaj karte hai, kal karte hai, parso karte hai, aise types. Okay. And the more lazy you become, the more your Shani is going to cause you trouble. Simplest, I'm saying, of course, it all gets modified based on various other factors, but this is number one. So hard work and discipline is what Shani likes. Number two, Shani likes masses. Lower level, not the elites. Shani dislikes elite. See, Shani is actually son of Surya.
The son of the sun.
Yeah, in the mythological lores that we get, he is a son of Surya. Okay. But he dislikes Surya. Completely dislikes him. Shani just dislikes sun. Okay. Because sun can project the ego, arrogance and confidence. Shani likes humility. Just the opposite. The more humble one is. So Shani's idea is that you be humble and do hard work.
Then why does Shani have a negative connotation?
That is because certain positions of Saturn, if it is placed. So these are the two things that are told. But fundamentally, people may not neither be humble nor hardworking. Okay. So then Shani also, among other things, it rules things like something that is very long lasting. Okay. So if Shani gives you a trouble, it is going to last for a very long time. Okay. For example, what I said about discipline and all that, this is the fundamental nature of the graha. But if Shani is negative, okay, and is troublesome, then it can cause a lot of trouble because it is slow also. Okay. And also another thing with Shani is that it likes justice. Okay. If there is something wrong or some injustice that has happened or being done, something, it likes dishing out that justice to that individual during its period. That can be very painful. Okay. Shani worships Bhairava and Kali. These are the two go-to graha devatas who can control Shani to an extent. But also, here let me say that some of the most fixed karmas, we are speaking of Drija karmas, are also governed by certain positions of Saturn. Saturn in that sense is, many people will say that Saturn is a karmic graha. Basically, what it means is that Saturn likes giving this justice business. So you have taken shortcuts XYZ, somewhere, Saturn comes in and he gives you full hisab. So he is like that credit card bill that comes in. First you enjoy, then the bill will come. So that is what he is, and that is where people, that's why people get scared, because obviously somewhere or the other, if you have taken shortcuts or some things like that, when Saturn comes in, it's going to make you pay. And there's no escaping it. It's not that simple to escape Saturn so easily. It's very... It itself is humble. See, escaping means what? Suppose Sun or the other grahas are weak or something like that. You do some pujas or japas or something like that for the grahas. That's basically a way of placating the graha. To placate Shani is very difficult because it's very humble. It is not looking for your praises too much.
And that's why you say the Hanuman Chalisa.
Hanuman Chalisa can help, but it has to be significant amount of Hanuman Chalisa.
Okay.
Hanumanji has the ability to control the 9 grahas, by the way. Other deities also have. Hanuman Chalisa is very popular, so that's why we use that. Achha, Saturn also controls various beings of the lower realms. So positions of Saturn can tell you whether XYZ individual will have contact with these kind of entities or not. Spirits also sometimes can be governed by Saturn. Saturn also indicates... so Saturn indicates generally the worker class. Okay. One of the very interesting remedies of Saturn, I know a friend who's uses this to tell people. For example, Saturn is difficult in somebody's horoscope. So tell him that in your house, on a specific day, you yourself clean the toilets. That's something, a very menial kind of work. Precisely what Saturn likes. No, don't let the servant or somebody else do it. You do it. You don't like it, so what? That's the attitude that if you have, then Saturn is going to turn slightly favorable towards you. It hates ego, it hates arrogance, it hates lack of humility, it hates lack of discipline. But unfortunately, the whole world suffers from these things a lot. And Saturn also gives in his justice. He's very justice oriented in that sense. By the way, Saturn can give in certain combinations exceptional amount of wealth. So much wealth that no other graha can give. In fact, you can take it this way, that perhaps some of the greatest, the richest people, some of them, would likely to have certain combinations of Saturn, certain places. When Saturn gives wealth, it's like unthinkable amount of wealth will come. But there is a catch involved. Saturn is one of the... Now, there are grahas of other combinations also. So there are certain grahas which are more krura. Krura means more... say, let's say freers or something. Not so, not gentle. Okay, Saturn is one of the krura grahas. Sun is also krura graha, by the way. Saturn is a krura graha. So Saturn's combination... If a wealth comes from Saturn, there are... it is not a natural domain of Saturn. Natural domain of Saturn is hard work and discipline. Being an unnatural domain, you can be certain that if a horoscope combination shows that this person made a lot of money with respect to Saturn, there will always be shortcuts involved.
Corruption.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not a natural domain. Okay. Saturn also represents imprisonment and things like that.
Like the ring of Saturn is like a test. You're caged up for some time.
Yeah.
And if you pass that test, you're rewarded.
Yes. Sort of. So, and...
Is it true that at the end of your Saturn phase, there's a reward always?
No, not always. It's a popular saying. Sometimes it is true, but sometimes it may not be true. Okay. Again, all of it depends on the position of Saturn. Okay, and as I mentioned, there are certain combinations of Saturn which, if present, there's no cure possible for that. If whatever is the affliction, nothing, no amount of upasana of any deity, no amount of going to anywhere else is going to bring any relief. Just have to go through that. Because that is the lesson that nature is going to teach you. Saturn is very good in teaching lessons. To keep certain degree of control over Saturn. Saturn also, by the way, controls oil and things like that. These are all governed by Saturn. People often ask, I'll do Hanuman Chalisa once. Once में तो कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, 10,000 साल में भी कुछ नहीं होगा. So do, depending on the amount of trouble you are in, you decide how much you have to do. Okay, so that it should be, of the same level as the intensity of difficulty that you are facing. Then only there is a chance that you will have some relief from it. Okay. Now we go to Rahu. So Rahu is basically an asura. The story goes that Rahu, after the churning of the ocean, cosmic ocean was done, then there was Amrita that came out. Okay, many things came out, of which one of them was Amrita. Amrita makes you immortal. So Rahu, an asura, disguises himself and goes. The gods have taken the Amrita and they're having. He goes there. He says that I want that Amrita also. So he disguises himself and he sits and he takes a bit of that Amrita in his mouth. Okay. Immediately there is Vishnu there. He understands that okay, this is not a god. This is an asura. So he uses his Sudarshan and cuts off his head. Okay. So the Amrita comes into his mouth, doesn't go into the body. So two parts come out. One is the head and one is the tail. So the head is Rahu of the Asura and the tail is Ketu, body, tail or body, whatever. Okay. But because he had Amrita, so he becomes immortal. Okay. Rahu is a head without a body. Rahu has its own interesting nature. The primary natures of Rahu is that it is a master in creating illusions. Absolute master. Okay. Number one. Number two is that Rahu tries to eat everything. Okay. Grasp and eat. But it can't digest everything because it doesn't have a body. So Rahu influence means you will try to, in that specific area or something, try to spread very fast. But whether you are able to integrate that properly, that you don't know. In fact, very often, that is precisely what the illusion is. Very fast expansion in certain ways, or very fast expansion only, for lack of better words. But whether that is being integrated or not, if it is not being integrated, then eventually that is going to suddenly burst. That is one of the problems with Rahu. Okay, Rahu also governs spirits. Okay, because it doesn't have a physical presence. Rahu is extremely powerful because all these domains, illusions, this, that, etc., these are all things in the mind. Imagination. A certain combination of Rahu can give tremendous imagination. Okay. Rahu is also, in a way, like the physical domain is there, and then there is the occult domain. He is the doorway between the physical and the occult. He can take you to that realm, both in a positive and a negative sense. Rahu is extremely brave. But this bravery is different from that of Mars. Mars is like full-scale warfare. Rahu is like a bomb blast. Even a moment before that, you don't know what is going to happen. Suddenly it will burst and everything is, you are like shocked out of your mind. Okay. Rahu has another ability. It can read through conspiracies. No other graha can. If there is some all the conspiracy theories in the world are Rahu's doing. He loves creating conspiracies, whether they're real or not. And it also gives you the ability to see through a conspiracy. Any individual who is working in a spy agency or something like this, you can't do that work until your Rahu is strong. It's impossible. Or politics, speculating, equations being made. This will work, that will work. All that is Rahu's domain. Internet, full-scale Rahu.
All YouTubers.
This age is Rahu, by the way. We call it Kali Yuga. This is the age when Rahu is most powerful. So Rahu is not always bad, by the way. I'm not saying that Rahu is bad. Technology is entirely Rahu. Today you have 50, 60 years ago, people used to think that, what is going to be a computer, large computer, maybe like the size of a room or something. Today that whole processing power is there in your telephone. Okay, it's becoming small, it's becoming more powerful. Things are changing very fast. Anything that changes fast is Rahu's domain. Quickly it is going to shift things. Okay, Rahu grasps attention very quickly, which is why the phone is the attention grabber in this today's age. Everybody, take the phone away, you are like like a fish out of water. Okay, so these things Rahu can control. On the positive side, Rahu gives a lot of courage, very strong courage. Rahu also, as I mentioned, can influence a person into black magic or these things, both being a victim of it or somebody who's doing it. Okay. Plus, the world of spirits and all that, Rahu has full connection to it. A certain combination of grahas can indicate that somebody may be affected by spirits. Rahu has control over it. Rahu also controls animals, not animals rather. It's like insects and all that. Cockroaches, spiders, this, that. All these are governed by Rahus. Okay. Rahu, to control Rahu, there are few deities who are very good in controlling Rahu. Primary of them is Ma Durga. Primary of them. Then also Bhairava is very good in controlling Rahu. Extremely potent in controlling Rahu. Okay. Rahu can lead to addictions, by the way. Certain combinations with Rahu, more or less, you can be certain that they'll have addiction, and very difficult to get out of addiction. Certain combinations of Rahu are there, which is present. So these two other deities are also there in the Tantric way, in the Dasmahavidya. Devi Chinnamasta is the one who controls Rahu. Okay, Chinnamasta is extremely aggressive. But this judgment is to be correctly applied when to worship which deity for relief. Okay, if whatever is there. Acha, Rahu has the ability to eclipse the sun and the moon. Sun and moon are the most fundamental grahas in the horoscope, because sun, I told you, is deeper level is soul and moon is the mind. Your soul and mind are the most important things. Rahu can cause eclipse to that. And that is going to cause certain behavioral changes in that individual. Even when we have eclipses outside, by the way, you will see there are two things there. Eclipse is a very peculiar time. One is that when an eclipse is happening, temples are closed. Okay. Normal dharma, normal sense of right and wrong, what is to be done and what is to be not done, dharma and adharma, has a certain flow. Okay. Whenever Rahu grasps the sun and the moon, it causes a tremendous change in the energy, in the atmospheric energy, spiritual energy of the place where that eclipse is happening, even on the world at a subtle level, but more specifically at the place where the eclipse is happening. So normal dharma gets disturbed. That is one of the reasons why temples are closed. Traditionally, there's certain sutak that is followed, which means that you don't eat food for a certain period of time until the eclipse gets over. Then you take a bath and things like that. You don't see an eclipse directly. And I'm not talking about the scientific aspect and all that, but spiritually, they have their own meaning why these are not done. And this is good to follow. Okay. But that period is also extremely good for spiritual practice. What you can achieve through years of practice in normal time, you can achieve in 1 or 2 hours during a grahan. Because Rahu is like that veil between the world you see and the world that you cannot see.
Explosive growth.
Explosive. He can lift that veil also. He can cause that veil also. And in fact, there are certain, outside India, there are certain places where Rahu worship is very common.
Outside India?
Yeah. Certain places, Rahu worship, Rahu tattoos and Rahu pujas are done specifically. But the power is used more for material purposes, some positive, some negative.
What is it called in English?
I don't know what it's called, but they call it Rahu only. Okay. Rahu's ability to see through conspiracy is very useful. Correctly placed, Rahu can also help you dominate your enemies. Because even before they make a move, you know what they're trying to do. He can see that thing. Okay. Rahu is also your link to your subconscious mind. All the other grahas are functioning in your conscious. Rahu is where the subconscious business starts in. Okay. Good or bad, whatever, but either way. And even Hanumanji also can be, certain sadhanas are there, Hanumanji, which can be done to control Rahu. Another thing is that Rahu can show in a horoscope things like we were discussing Sarpa dosha and all that. Placement of Rahu determines that. Rahu also controls Nagas and Sarpas and all that. Okay. Snakes and all are Rahus. So after Rahu, let's go to Ketu. Ketu is the body of Rahu without the head. So Ketu governs, again like Rahu, it governs all spirits, particularly spirits, but also high level of spirituality. Very high level. See, Jupiter, as I was mentioning, is more like...
wisdom and philosophy.
Yes. But this is mysticism. Mystical experiences. Very strange experiences. But also spirits. Okay. Both of them are very much there. And it also governs a certain degree of detachment. Correctly placed, Ketu will govern detachment. Correctly placed, Ketu can also show whether a person will attain to very high states like nirvana and all these things. Certain, but that is, in my opinion, that judgment should not be done, because very high, when you talk about that level of spirituality, they actually go beyond grahas. Okay. It's not, it's what happens is that after a person has achieved something, then people try to retrofit and say, iske liye hua, uske liye hua. But actually that level of spirituality is beyond grahas. Okay. Ketu is also very brave. Okay. But Ketu is a bit mindless. So Ketu is irrational completely because it doesn't have a head. So wherever Ketu is placed, that is the area where you will work mostly either out of intuition or whatever organic feeling you have. Thinking too much is not going to help wherever the Ketu is placed in the horoscope. So Ketu requires a head. One of the best deities to worship to control Ketu is Ganpati. Okay, because Ganpati himself has his head replaced by worshipping Ganpati is very good to bring Ketu under some degree of control, and feeding fishes and things like that. They are also governed by Ketu. Okay. So Ketu's placement tells you about spirits and about detachment also. Detachment means it can be very strong degree of detachment in the sense, if suppose the house of spouse has Ketu, then it may show that the marriage, in the marriage there is a certain degree of, could be a disconnect between the husband and wife. Maybe same house they're staying, but there is no connection properly. It's like two roommates, that's it, kind of. So those things, it could be in other areas also. So these are the three fundamental themes of Ketu. One is that it could be spirits or it could be high level of spirituality. Achha, Ketu also governs very high level of mathematical ability, by the way. Very high level. I'm not talking ordinary level. This is like international best mathematicians of the world. That is very typically Ketu has this ability. Or very high caliber chess players. Not just normal chess players. This is like super grandmasters. Okay. Where they're looking at the most complicated positions. Because after some point, Ketu is the graha of intuition. Most important graha of intuition, because it doesn't think. The mind is not there. Your intuition gets blocked because of a rational mind. Okay. But rational mind has its uses, because until the intuition is purified and correctly built on, it will guide you wrongly, because you can get information from all sorts of places. So Ketu governs these things, and among deities, one of the, as I mentioned, the first deity to worship is Ganpati, for that matter. There are certain Ganesh Rudrakshas which, with energized with mantras, they can help an individual during Ketu troubles. If there are very significant amount of problems, a certain placement of Ketu. In Tantra, the Mahavidya known as Dhumavati to control Ketu. She is one of the most peculiar Mahavidyas. Okay. Ketu also controls things like smoke, particular. So Rahu and Ketu's differences, to give an example, suppose somebody is afflicted by a disease. If Rahu is the cause of the disease, you go to a doctor, the doctor will tell you, to theek ho jayega, koi baat nahi, this is what the is. You go to Dr. B, he will say, it's very simple, no problem, but he will give you different diagnosis. You go to 10 different places, all of them will give you full confidence. Ki ekdam 100% will get cured, but 10 different diagnoses. If Ketu is governing the disease, 110 doctors also will not find out what is the root cause of the problem. So it's like this smokiness about it. It's not, the vision is not there, clarity is not there. And Rahu is the pretense of clarity. ज़्यादा ही दिख रहा है, जितना है उससे ज़्यादा दिख रहा है.
Rahu's illusion, Ketu's mystery.
Sort of, in a way, briefly saying that is right. And both of them get involved in yogas. Obviously, they're always 7 houses apart. Rahu and Ketu will always be 7 houses apart. Okay, and they get involved in the Grahan and all these things, etc. So Ketu fundamentally is, in a way, both intuition, spirituality, spirits, and detachment. These things are governed by Ketu.
Okay, that's it. That's the
9 grahas.
Okay, this is the point where I would also like you to explain the houses.
Okay.
In terms of, let's make this personalized for the end viewer. There's a lot of people who don't understand astrology, but I feel like if they get an idea of what houses stand for, it suddenly makes you interested in astrology for the first time. I would always kind of laugh at my mum, who's very into it. All this doesn't work. And when she explained the houses and she explained the positions of my planets, I was like, okay, that's a little weird. Kind of describe my personality. I would even laugh at all these friends of mine who talk about, oh, you're a Libra? That means you could date a Gemini. I would laugh at my friends until I just realized that there's some truth in astrology. And the more I learn about it, the more humble I got about the subject. But it began with understanding what those 12 houses stand for on a very personal level. I will let you expand on this thought.
Let's start with the first house. First house is the Lagna, okay, which we call. Lagna is the zodiac that comes up in the eastern horizon at the moment of birth of an individual, okay, of the 12 houses, whatever is coming up at the eastern horizon.
As in the map of where you were born, at what time you were born, you look at the eastern horizon.
Correct.
Whatever's there.
Whatever sign, house, Rashi is coming up, that is the Lagna.
The question is there a sun there? Is there Mercury in that part? Is there Venus in that part?
That comes the second part. First is you fix the Lagna.
Okay.
From where the calculations are to be done.
Gotcha.
Okay. So Lagna is your house number 1. Okay. It could be any house. Lagna. So Lagna determines the individual's first basic personality. It determines what is their physically, how do they look and things like that, and their thinking process. Lagna is perhaps in a way the self. You are the Lagna first. Okay. How you think, how you determine, how you work and all that, everything will be governed by Lagna.
Can you explain that looks part based on if the sun is in that part or if the moon is in that part?
No, so there are multiple combinations possible in this. Along with the Lagna, there is the trines of the individual. Okay. The reason I'm not going into the specific combinations because there are endless combinations.
Okay. And it'll take too long.
Not just too long. It'll take years to actually grasp. There are so many combinations possible. You will have only through practice. This is the basics I'm talking. But once a person starts practicing and all that, eventually then you will develop your method of understanding how is the looks. So sometimes it's possible that even in a Krura Graha, some of the Grahas, they can give fantastic looks in an individual. Okay. But there will be something in the personality that is not absolutely clean. Okay. So all these things, various possibilities are there. This is house number 1. Okay. It also gives a general idea about your health. Whether, as I said, it is like yourself. How do you look at yourself? Okay.
Also, how like the world would know you?
No. That's very interesting. There is another calculation that goes not at the first level, of second level. So there is something known as the Arudha Lagna. There's a specific combination which finds out specific house will have that. And from that point, if you look at the horoscope, then you will understand how the world looks at you. You may think you are XYZ, the world may think you are something else.
Wow. Okay.
Because Jyotish goes to that depth.
Gotcha.
Okay. Your second house governs things like food. What do you like eating? How do you speak? Okay. What's your manner of speech? Is it sweet? Is it rough? Do you lie? Are you truthful? All these things you can find out. Number 2, wealth that comes from your family. Are you born into a rich family, well-off family? Does your family support you, etc.? Like this. Family means parents' side family. Okay. After marriage, it becomes your spouse and all that family. More or less shows the support of your family resources that your family can provide for you, your food habits, your speech, these things. Okay. I'm just giving broad ideas. Remember that these 9 grahas and 12 rashis govern everything in the universe. If Jyotish is to be we look at from the Jyotish point of view. So that means that each houses and each grahas will have a huge list of things actually connected to them. But these are the most primary things that I'm talking about. Okay. Third house, for example, is communication, written communication. Okay. It is also the house of courage. How much, whether a person is brave or whether a person is not brave, you can figure out from the third house. Okay. It also gives short travels, not very long. Okay. Maybe from Mumbai to Pune or things like that, short travels. It also governs sports. Okay. Whether you are inclined towards sports, physical sports, not chess and all that. Okay, those things. So, and yeah, it also governs your siblings, specifically younger siblings, those who are younger than you. Whether you have a sibling or not, what is your equation with the sibling, everything. Third house will tell you that. Okay. Your fourth house is your mother. And also the house, your home, where are you staying? Okay. Along with that, from the fourth house, you can figure out things like whether you will stay in a country of your birth, you go to a different place. What is your equation with your mother? First thing. Okay. Then is the vastu of your place correct or not?
Wow.
Where you are staying.
This is almost like intrusively like an X-ray on someone's life.
Yeah.
That's how deep astrology can go if it's in the hands of a
And
right.
this I'm talking is just the starting level. There are more other things there. Okay. Even the charts in Jyotish are not one. One is your Rashi chart, which is this I'm talking about. Then there is Navamsa. And then there are 10, 15 other subtle levels of charts. If I have to check your spirituality, I will check a particular horoscope, which will give a more detailed view of one aspect of your life. If I need to check something else, the various other aspects. So like this, there are multiple charts. And that is why one of the typical questions that come in, that if twins are there of similar birth, why are their lives different? Because even if there is a difference in a few seconds, those secondary, tertiary charts will all start changing.
Wow.
Okay. So this level Western astrology does not have. It's only Jyotish that has it. So we dealt with fourth house is basically a home. Fourth house also determines one very interesting thing. Are you happy or not? Very simply put, your sense of happiness, peace. Fourth house is your heart also. That's one of the first spiritual houses. Fourth. Okay. Then comes fifth house. Fifth house governs creativity. How imaginative are you? How creative are you? Achha, one more thing. Fourth house also governs your primary education, school. Okay. School education and all that. Fifth house will start governing your higher education, your creativity. Most importantly, all artistic people must have certain strong combinations with the fifth house. Fifth house also governs your children. If people have problems in childbirth, often there is some problem in the fifth house. Okay. It's sort of your vision of the future. Sometimes it happens that there may be a negative graha or some other problematic combination in the fifth house. So that individual does not have a clear vision of where am I going in the future. Or you will make plans and they'll never succeed. That's one of the things that fifth house causes the problem. Okay. So fifth house governs these things. Fifth house also governs, by the way, among many other houses also there, but fifth is the first one that governs your mantra. What is the natural affinity of the mantra? Which mantra will work naturally for you?
As in each of the grahas has its own deity.
No, this is generally speaking. Okay. To give an example, if somebody has, suppose, and mind you, again I'm saying that there are multiple combinations. This is just I'm telling you one. So in suppose fifth house is Mars. Now we have learned that Mars is connected to Hanumanji, Mars is connected to Narasimha, Mars is connected to Skandha, to Baglamukhi. you can choose one of these deities depending on some other key, what are the influences there in Mars, and say that you can start these deities upasana.
Okay.
Fifth house governs your first natural liking. And the beauty of this is that each house from its shrines, which is from that house, if you connect to 5th and 9th of the house, if you do a calculation 1, 2, 3, 4, if you take that as the base and connect the 5th one and the 9th one, so these houses will have a natural liking towards each other. 1, 5, 9 from any house. So basically means yourself is house 1. 5 is your children. So generally humanity will have a love for their child. Okay, if this was not there, why would a person take care of a child?
What about the 9th?
9th is your forefathers, your father.
Okay.
So this makes a very interesting, yourself, your future and your past. They are linked together. Okay.
We were at the 5th house.
5th house. Now let's come to the 6th house. This is the first difficult house in the horoscope. 6th is the house of diseases. 6th is the house of enemies. 6th is the house of debts. 6th is the house of court cases. All these things will come from 6th house. Okay. So if there's a problem of enemies or things like that, difficulties, from looking at the combination in the 6th house and the Grahas, you can make out that whether how long it is going to last, or what is the way to get out of it, or if at all you can get out of it or not. And plus diseases and all that is governed by 6th house. Okay. On the positive side, 6th house can also indicate service. Service means to serve somebody without expectation. That is also governed by the 6th house. Okay. Then comes 7th house. 7th house is the house of your spouse, your partner. 7th house is also the window to the world. Okay, because it's just opposite to yourself. 7th house is also a house of business, a partnership. If you're doing a business, so whether you will work or whether you will do business, in that 7th house plays a key role to determine. But more or less, your marriage and relationships, first thing is that 7th house it will govern. Very interestingly, by the way, 5th house governs a feeling of love. But whether that translates into something concrete eventually will be governed by the 7th house. And it is the job of the person who is doing the analysis to see how it links up everything. Okay. Then comes the 8th house. This is the mysterious house. Bad and good. Bad because it is a house where if a graha is placed, more or less it is going to give you trouble. That's certain. Just like 6th house. 6th house is going to give you trouble. 8th house is also going to give you trouble. 8th house is everything in your life that you cannot see. Everything that you cannot predict. You thought that all bases are covered. 8th house is what you never expect to happen. Unexpected things. Accidents. Nobody expects an accident. Right? Absolutely unknown things. That comes from 8th house. Whether sometimes you'll see a person, normal life is leading, out of the blue he acquires some wealth or something like that happens, or something, some sudden change that comes in, positive or negative. It's all 8th house. That which you could not predict before. No one could predict. Out of the blue it will happen. 8th house also governs your longevity, more or less how many years you will survive. 8th house is death. 8th house is sex. 7th house is also sex, but 8th house shows whether a person enjoys it or not. And it can also govern and show you if there are any kind of diseases or anything related to sexuality. All that will come out from the 8th house. 8th house is occult. Almost every individual who is good in occult will have certain strong 8th house combinations. Okay. Because occult means what? That which you cannot actually see in the normal sense. That's where your occult starts. 8th house governs all that. Okay. 8th house also governs things like Kundalini and all that. So 8th house also governs inheritance. Very interestingly. Okay. Whether you will attain inheritance. It also governs whether you will attain any inheritance from your spouse. some people may marry into a very rich family. Okay, get something from there. So all that is governed by the condition of the 8th house. Okay. Then comes to 9th house. 9th house is your father. 9th house is your dharma. 9th house is your guru. Because father is your first guru, in a way, when a child is born, it's considered. 9th house shows more or less ki if a person, what kind of guru and what kind of guidance he will receive, where he will receive the guidance from, what teachers, how is his equation with the teachers. Okay. These things will come out from the 9th house. Plus, 9th house also governs things like, suppose you're doing PhD and that level of study, 9th house comes into play. Okay. Pitru doshas and all that, if they are there in the chart, they are reflected among other things through the 9th house also. Okay. So 9th house is fundamentally your guru. Acha, 9th house also is your devata, by the way. Not just 5th. 9th is also your devata. 9th is not just a devata, it is in your house or wherever you do your spiritual practice. It governs and shows what kind of spiritual practice is it doing. Is that space nice or is that space problematic or whatever? Many things can come in 9th house. 9th house is your connection to God. Okay. Then comes 10th house. 10th house is very powerful house. 10th house is your karma. 9th is dharma, 10th is karma. Karma is fundamentally, where are you placed in society? How is society looking at you? What have you achieved in life? What is your area of work? So basically, when questions on career and work comes in, 10th becomes very important. You see that what kind of work you can do. So now if you link this knowledge with initials of Jyotish are, people have to remember these things. If you don't remember, you'll never be able to do Jyotish. This should be completely inside your head. So we have talked about Mars as a graha that connects to police and army, and suppose someone has Mars placed in the 10th house, very strong, you can more or less predict that, okay, this guy is likely to go into police or this type of work. Okay, because that is the area of work and that is the graha placed there. Now if you change Mars and suppose Venus comes in, safely predict he is either going to be in some fashion industry or media or something like that. Change it to Moon. Okay. Moon, I had said, among other things, is that food. So maybe you should open a restaurant. See. Change it to Sun. Try for government jobs. UPSC, this, that, it's straight away. 10th house is also, in some people consider 10th also to be father. Okay. But more or less, fundamentally, 10th shows your kind of where do you stand in society, what work you can do, and how far you will succeed and things like that. Okay. So that makes it a very crucial house for people. Okay. 10th is that. Then comes to the 11th house. 11th house governs things like wealth, your earning. Okay. How much salary are you getting, or what is your earning from the work you are getting, whatever you are doing. Okay. 11th house is, first thing is earnings. Second thing about 11th house is that it also rules your friends. How is your friend circle? Okay. So if you have a Rahu in your 11th house, you will have Rahu influenced friends around you. Okay. Like that. These two connections are very simple. So once you remember these two, first step of Jyotish is to remember these things. Unless you remember them, you will never be able to do. You remember them, then you apply. After that, you practice and apply, and there are other sadhanas you do which can make you better in Jyotish. Many things are there. Anyway, so wealth, earnings specifically, salary, what we call, all these things are 11th house. 11th house is also your friends. 11th house is also your elder sibling. Somebody who is elder to you. If you have an elder sibling, if at all you have an elder sibling, what is your equation with the elder sibling? All these things will come in 11th house. Okay. And 11th house is also your relatives, more or less, broadly speaking. See, whatever the as I'm saying about the different houses, these are like the first level. There are more things involved. As I said, 9 grahas, 12 houses govern everything in the world, if you can see it that way. Okay, so obviously the list will be very heavy. After 11th, so 11th house, if somebody has to give an example, if somebody has Jupiter in the 11th house, he'll make a lot of wealth. But he'll be clean wealth. Because Jupiter is an ethical graha. Somebody has, say, Rahu in the 11th house, he'll be very rich. In fact, negative grahas, not negative, Krura grahas in the 11th house bring tremendous amount of wealth, but there'll always be some corruption involved in it. It's not going to be, in fact, understanding these things in a horoscope, you can look at a person's horoscope and see that is he amenable to corruption or not. Can you bribe this person or not? Even better than predicting what is going to happen later, horoscopes work even more powerfully in understanding the nature of the person. How is he going to react? If you know your fundamentals in Jyotish well, you can figure out.
If you have data on the person's date, time and place of birth, you have some level of power over the person.
One way of looking at it that way, but nature is smarter than you. Remember this always. So nature is never going to give power to somebody who doesn't deserve it. There is a responsibility that comes in with Jyotish, not to be misused. And if you start frivolously using it, after some time, your predictions, all of them will go wrong.
Wow.
You can try, you can mug up all the texts in the world. Still, the art of prediction is something different. It will still be things are not going correct. So nature has its own way of balancing things. Big boss is nature. Then after the 11th house, we come to the 12th house. 12th house is also sort of a negative house. Just like 6th and 8th, 12th. There is something negative and then there is something positive also. In the negative sense, 12th house represents things, hidden enemies you may have, hospitalization, long-term diseases, secret relationships, okay, which are not there in public, secretly some affair or something going on, etc. On the positive side, 12th house can represent meditative capacity. 12th house is, it's like that part of the mind or that zone. It's also your sleep, by the way. Yeah, 12th house is your sleep. So looking at 12th house, you can figure out whether a person dreams a lot, dreams less, good dreams, bad dreams. Many things you can figure out. And yes, meditative capacity. Whether you can meditate. Because meditation is also like sleep, except you are not losing consciousness completely. Okay, you are being aware and you are going to a different zone. How far you can meditate or not depends on, often very good meditators have very strong grahas in the 12th house. Okay, so these are the 12 houses.
Now we're done with the theory of astrology.
Yes.
Wow. And this is not even 1% of the subject.
No, there's a lot of other things.
Okay. At this point in the show, I have to ask you some FAQs.
Okay.
Frequently asked questions.
All right.
Let's talk about Sade.
Achha. So Sade is Saturn's transit over moon, basically. So Saturn is a very dry planet. As I told you, it's very, in that sense, very disciplined planet. It's not an emotional planet. Moon is an emotional graha. Whenever these two come together, more or less, it is going to cause you pain. Okay. Because it's a very diverse nature.
As in when it meets in your first house.
No, anywhere it meets, that house, it will cause some pain.
So if it meets in your house of spouse, it will cause fights in your marriage. If it meets in
fights or some other problem or the other.
If it meets in your career house, it will cause career problems.
Yes.
Okay.
But this is the general in the horoscopic combination. But what is known as Sade is that, so now there are two aspects to the grahas. One is that you are born with a certain combination of grahas. Apart from that, the grahas are always moving, transiting, right? Through the zodiac. So that is called as transit or gochara. Okay. So when the grahas are, these two have to be combined together for predictions. When Saturn is passing over your moon, that is known as Sade because Saturn takes 2.5 years to cross one Rashi. Okay. So basically, Saturn's influence starts even before it reaches your moon, which means, to give an example, we were talking about the 12 houses, say Aries. Let's just say Aries. Aries, before Aries you have Pisces and after Aries you have Taurus. So somebody's moon is in Aries. Suppose Saturn is passing through Pisces. It will start its effect on the moon already. 2.5 years of Pisces, then 2.5 years of Aries, then 2.5 years of Taurus. 7.5 years it is going to influence the moon.
That's why Sade.
But it is not always bad. It's more of projection that has been done that it is very bad. Sometimes it will be bad, and in some individuals it may not be bad.
Okay.
It depends on multiple factors.
Which is other planetary positions in your chart?
Planetary positions, fundamental strength of the horoscope. Suppose somebody's moon already has an influence of Saturn, which means that right from a younger age only they are accustomed to getting beaten up by life. So there कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है मेरे को. ठीक है. अलग से it is not going to be worse than what is already there.
Okay.
So that's in a way of looking at हाँ ठीक है chill है कोई बात नहीं ठीक है. Suppose साढ़े सात is running but your dasha is positive. Dasha means now there is the other concept of time. Each of the grahas get a certain time which it governs your life. Okay. So your dasha is positive, you will find more or less positive results. Zyada you will not, Saraswati will not impact you that much.
Okay.
Or if the moon is very strongly placed, you will have the ability to withstand whatever Saturn is teaching you.
Okay. I have to ask you some more mystical questions as well.
Okay.
If I take up Monkhood a year from now, will my entire chart be turned upside down because I'm shedding off my identity and all that?
No. It's not that easy to get out of the grahas. Grahas will already indicate that whether you are taking up Monkhood or not.
Okay.
A person gets out of the influence of grahas at a very, 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 very late stage.
In the spiritual journey.
In the spiritual journey. If you have good grasp of the subject and you have some blessings of some deities, or there are people like that, you can figure out for a long part of the journey. To go out of the influence of grahas, yeah, it is possible. It comes at a much later stage, not the initial stages.
Okay. So effectively, for the average human, what should be the approach towards astrology, according to you? After studying astrology so much, should you even be knowing your future?
That depends on you. I think see, even this is also such an interesting question. You can see a chart and say that whether this person will be able to learn astrology or not.
No, in terms of should everyone even be getting their charts read?
Right. So, in terms of when there is a difficulty, it is good to have some amount of guidance from it, but also understand that don't go into specific details of it. Specific details means astrology has this problem of weakening the mind also in some cases, which means once you take some reading, so you will feel for every small thing you'll think that, okay, let's just check the chart. No, it doesn't work that way. Look at a broad perspective. Broad perspective means, okay, I am running this particular graha. These are the themes related to my chart, which will work for the next few years. This broad idea you have, then you use your own natural intelligence and hard work and work. Do not, some people have that. It's a weakness of the mind. Every day morning you go and open your chart and see what is going to happen. That is all nonsense. So that will weaken the mind. Astrology is very good if used in the right degree.
When they do your Kundali matching before marriage, what is actually happening? Are you superimposing the two charts on each other?
No, kind of, but basically you are seeing that what is the level of compatibility at using various parameters. Multiple parameters are there. Okay, some parameters are whether there's a mental compatibility, whether there is a family-wise compatibility, because marriage is considered not just, at least when these were devised, so marriage is not just about two individuals, it's like two families coming together. So if sometimes it may show that there may be lack of compatibility among the families. Okay, physical compatibility between the individuals, whether there's a support system, and then there are a few other factors which are more mystical in nature, which shows that, okay, is this union going to bring forth a positive result in terms of children and other things and growth. So all these things are taken into account. That's one aspect of it, but that is not a final aspect. Final aspect means, in my experience, what is the standard matching of horoscopes is not enough. Apart from that, there are also some other techniques to find out whether there is a certain level of compatibility or not possible. It becomes very crucial to do that today because unlike past, we have the option of divorces here. Past, there was no divorces. So you get married, you are like stuck in there, more or less. Okay. Today, people get married after a few years, or not even that, less than that. Things don't match, you move out. Okay. So therefore, accordingly, understanding also has to change. and have a more, according. So whether there is a certain degree of compatibility in the grahas, that also has to be checked. There's never going to be, by the way, a perfect compatibility. That doesn't happen.
Have you seen a marriage where there is a bad compatibility theoretically according to the Kundali, but then it ends up in a good marriage? Is that possible or it's unlikely?
So it depends on what you mean by good marriage.
Isn't it like they rate it on a score of 34 or
36.
36.
Yeah.
And then above a certain point also is not good, and then below a certain point is also not good. You just
So that's exactly what I was telling in the previous one, which is the previous answer I was saying. So this is we call the guna matching. What are the guna qualities basically of matching, etc.
It's like the mathematics of compatibility.
Yeah, but it is not foolproof.
Okay.
I have seen cases where people have had low scores, but they have had good, more or less good. No marriage is perfect ever. Okay, but more or less good, and they're doing good. Whereas I've seen cases where the matching has shown very high scores, but it did not last. That's why I say that is not enough. There is to be a basic also checking of the condition of the grahas and how they kind of superimpose the chart with its own techniques and all are there. So that gives a more deeper clarity whether these two individuals are fit to be together.
How much does intense levels of Tantra shift your entire chart?
No, nothing shifts your entire chart. Okay, that idea you take it out of the head first.
It is going to be
more. I have not seen anybody being able to change their entire chart. What, not just Tantra, let's make it more generic. So spiritual practices, you can, here is the thing, if you have reached a level where you have developed a connection with your Ishta Devata, whoever it is, proper connection, not just theoretical, ekdam proper connection, then the Ishta Devata has a far higher intelligence than you. He or she will guide you through those times, which no astrologer can guide ever. That is a way of, so it is not that the karmas are vanishing. The karmic momentum, that thing is coming towards you, but the Ishta Devata knows how to bypass this.
You have a bodyguard then.
More of them. It's like you have surrendered to that Devata. They will take care. It comes to the same thing. As I mentioned, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was giving an example that suppose somebody's leg is supposed to be cut because of some karmic thing or accident or something like that. He does a lot of sadhana. Instead of cutting the leg, there may be just a pinprick. That karma is getting nullified.
Okay.
This level, however, is not easy. It can only come when the Ishta Devata takes control of a person's life, and that is not at all easy.
What about astrology, TV shows and channels that talk about wearing gemstones or even crystals like these? These are loosely related to astrology.
Mm-hmm.
What is the role of crystals, gemstones and all in like changing your behavioral patterns or your story?
So fundamentally, astrology has this other aspect that is, I was talking about, the pariharam or the upaya, the remedial measures. If there is something that is problematic, first of all, whether it can be remedied and what is the best way to remedy that. Among the remedial measures that are possible, there are multiple things. Worship of deities, specific mantras to be done, specific activities to be performed, or wearing of specific gemstones related to the grahas. Now, which of these remedies are going to work for an individual, that is for the astrologer to determine. Okay. It is not necessary for everybody to wear these gemstones. Neither is it, in some cases, it will work very well. So that judgment has to be done by the person who is looking at the horoscope.
Crystals entered my life very organically, naturally, and I've gotten really into them lately. Is it because of something in my charts that it came samne se?
Possible.
Is there any logic like if you buy too many crystals, you're playing too much with your karmas?
No. So first of all, don't worry about playing with the karmas and all that. Those things are whatever is to like a particular amount of particular momentum of events that are supposed to happen, kind of going to happen anyway. That is going to come. So get that idea very clear in your head first. Okay, that is not going to specifically, if there is something that is going to cause a strong impact on your consciousness, that is sort of prefixed. As an individual, what you can do is that how do you prepare yourself for it? So it is not that bringing too many crystals are going to cause anything bad. I mean, I have not dealt with crystals too much. Gemstones and all is fine, but crystals I haven't dealt. So I do not think that there is anything negative that is going to happen if you know what you are doing and what you are dealing with. And I believe that crystals can hold energies. I think somebody who's more into crystals may be able to explain better. But I don't think it is one way or the other, it is not going to shift your karma so easily. Unless, and here is again coming back to the 3 types of karma that I've told you. If there are adhira karmas, there are weak karmas, etc. Those two you can shift through these things. But remember, that which is a drira karma in a horoscope, anybody's horoscope, that nothing can change.
Okay.
Nothing in the world will change. That is, you have to go through that.
I mean, again, I keep boiling myself back down to this deity question and Tantra question. It's not easy to spiritually progress. That's one thing I figured. You need discipline, hard work, willpower.
Yes.
You're earning all that spiritual progress through so much willpower and discipline. It doesn't shift anything.
Next life it will shift. No?
So only for your next life you're preparing right now.
These are not things of one lifetime.
It's like that student who is working hard for an exam that's 2 days away, thinking that I'll make my date tomorrow easier. I'll just revise tomorrow, but I'll finish my portion today.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to bring you the right results. So you have to expand your understanding of the time scales. In our system, for Jyotish and this and then karma, it is not. So death is not the end. So you are carrying forward some things from here, and the practices you are doing are modifying what you're going to get the next time. Okay. Specifically, when there are fixed karmas that cannot be changed. So this is the way to go about it.
Do you think we've missed out anything in this conversation?
On Jyotish?
Yeah.
90% is left.
Let's talk about Jyotish Sadhanas. You said that even a good Jyotish has to follow certain spiritual disciplines.
Right. So today, most of them don't. Okay. Almost nobody who is into Jyotish does any kind of... Zyada nahi karta hai, sadhana and all that. But in a previous era, there used to be the norm that before you start reading charts and all that, you start getting some connection to some deity. Okay. And that helps you in specifically, there are going to be horoscopes, so there are going to be things which are going to be tricky. When it is tricky, then see, this is what I told you is the logic. But after this, there are many things to be weighed in the chart, right? So that is not a particularly scientific, that's not mathematical. It's something that organically, intuitively you have to determine that these are the grahas, these are the positive, these are the negative. So where does it weigh? Is it going to be finally positive or finally negative? Ki ye hone wala, wo hone wala. That governing capacity is an individual's capacity. Same horoscope you give to 10 people, if it's a slightly tricky horoscope, they may come with 10 different interpretations of it. So which is the right one? There you need some inspiration from some deity. That's why previously it used to be. Today's time, I would say that if somebody is interested in Jyotish, one of the best things to do is worship Ganpati. He has the knowledge and he has if you blesses somebody, you will learn Jyotish. If you have the basics you are meant to learn, then Ganpati is the best deity. One of the best deities to worship. But not the only deity.
Why did you get into it?
I was just curious. Someday I remember somebody gave the chart and all, somebody gave some readings and all that. So I just thought that let's see what is there in it. So I bought some books and started reading. And after that I started predicting just like that. And slowly it knowledge accumulated, practice. That's how it started.
Okay. What sadhanas should those professional astrologers be doing right now?
So most of them that I have met do not do any sadhanas. So I feel that their correct prediction, volume of correct prediction, many factors are there. Their own horoscopes are also there.
What?
Their own horoscopes are also there. Suppose an astrologer is passing through a bad time. He may know everything, but his predictions are going to all fail. Okay. So, I feel that generally, as I mentioned, the worship of Ganpati is very good. If not Ganpati, then if you have an Ishta Devata, whom you connect to, even a little bit of connection, then it's good to worship that deity, and it will build up a stronger chance of success in predicting. Finally, at the end of the day, Jyotish is about prediction. You may know all the theory and your predictions may all go wrong. Then it's not much useful, right? So it's a way of divination.
Okay. Are palmistry and face reading related subjects?
To Jyotish?
Yeah.
Palmistry is related to Jyotish in some senses.
So your palm does have some
Those who know
notes.
palmistry, they can figure out how the grahas are placed.
Really? Wow. Do you know palmistry?
A little bit.
Really? You know my chart. So by seeing my hand, do you see parallels?
No, I will not go into the specifics of it. No, that I will, that's not yeah. But palmistry can give you some hint. But there are other things also. I rely more on Jyotish than on palmistry if needed. But Jyotish has this other aspects, as I mentioned to you, muhurta, and there is something called a prashna. That's very interesting.
What is prashna?
Prashna is, suppose you have a question and you are serious about the question, okay? Not a frivolous question, but seriously something is bothering you, etc. You may not have your birth data and all that. It can still be answered. Because the moment that question comes in your head and you decide to take help from somebody, you approach somebody, I have this doubt, I have this question. The grahas at that moment, at that place, it's like a birth chart. Time, place, and that date. These at that moment will give you an answer. What is the answer to that question? Is it positive, negative? Will it work out? Will it not work out? What are the obstacles? What time? Everything.
Damn.
That is prashna.
Damn.
And specifically in South, in Kerala, a lot of texts were created on prashna. And fantastic texts are there. Great texts are there. Prashna Tantra, they call it. So many things. Everything can be. In fact, whenever there's a doubt in the horoscope, not just doubt. Here's the other thing. Just somebody in the horoscope, for example, is your accumulated karmas from past, right? So there are certain astrologers who will, suppose you approach them, but it has to be done in seriousness. That's what I say. Astrology should not be frivolous. I get up in the morning and have nothing to do and I just open some chart. No, if you really need help, at that time only you should approach an astrologer or use astrology if you know that thing. So you open your birth horoscope, but at the same time look at the grahas in the sky. Compare these two. That will tell you that whether you have in this life you have done positive things or negative things.
You said that if you have a burning desire to know something important and you go to a good Jyotish, he will look up at the sky basically, which is the astrological chart, and he'll be able to predict time, which means time and space are always connected. In terms of your life and its outcomes and results will be a result of what point in your timeline you're at. But you'll get a trailer and a preview by looking at the stars and the wall with designs around you.
Yes. So, if I understand what you're saying correctly, so yes, at any given point, if you approach the astrologer with a specific burning question in your head, at that moment, the condition of the grahas, where they're placed in which Rashi, etc., treat it like a birth chart. At that moment, looking at the grahas, you can figure out that whether that specific thing that you have in mind, whether it will, what is the outcome of that, positive, negative, how much time it will require, what needs to be done, etc. Everything you can find out.
Makes me think even more that we're living inside a simulation, which we are, according to spiritual theory that we've spoken about in all these other episodes. And astrology is basically God's way of giving you a hint about what's going to happen in your version of the simulation in the near or far future.
Depends on how you define God.
The universe.
The universe is like a software. Universe is like a software. So constantly there's a feedback loop. Everything that you're doing is getting fed into that whatever algorithm it has, and it's churning out that, okay, you're doing this, so this is the outcome that is going to come. This is the outcome. It's constantly real time it's happening.
Okay.
Which means that what actions you perform can also modify it if you give it a certain amount of time. And that time is not always in one lifetime.
I have a friend who's recently started studying the Bhagavad Gita
through
classes. And she's not so into spirituality. So I actually wanted to know what she picked up from the Bhagavad Gita. Like, what's the basic understanding? She said that the Gita says that there's actually no such thing as good or bad. We look at it as good or bad based on our conditioning and our stories till that point. The universe is just reacting to your karmas. So effectively, what you're meant to do in the present moment is just try being a good person and try getting more spiritualized. It basically boils down to that, because you can't help what's going to happen to you. It's because it's happened in your past. And you might look at it as a bad event, but it's actually just an outcome of what you've done in the past already.
My view.
No, please. That's why I'm bringing up this.
So again, slight deviation from what exactly you asked. So whenever somebody tells me that Gita says this, first question is, tell me the sloka.
Okay.
Because the Gita is the most popular book, also is the most abused book.
Really?
People have their own understanding fed into the Gita. Gita ये भी बोल रहा है, वो भी बोल रहा है. Finally तो एक दिन पता चलेगा Gita माने one book will have for everything. Gita is wonderful text, but Gita is not at all an easy text. People have made it easy because they have their own understandings also they have fed into. Because first of all, nobody knows, most people don't know Sanskrit. They read commentaries का भी commentaries पढ़ते हैं. And then they add up things and pick up 1-2 slokas from here and there and make up an idea. Acha, Gita may be saying that. Gita says a lot of things about a lot of things, by the way. Gita is a progression from chapter 1 to chapter 18. It is a progression. You cannot suddenly randomly pick up one verse from here and one verse from there. In one place, Krishna tells Arjuna that you have to go beyond the Vedas, because the Vedas are 3 gunas. Again at, I think 16th or 17th chapter, he says, the person who does not follow the Shastras, what is written in the Smriti and Shruti, which is the Vedas and the Vedanga and the Dharma Shastra, etc., is acting out of its free will and is mostly deluded. So one place is saying go beyond the Vedas, other place is saying that everything is the Vedas. How do you reconcile these two? Unless you ask this question, reconciliation to aayega hi nahi. Anyway, this is going to a tangent on the Bhagavad Gita. It's a very terrific text, but it's also a text that to imbibe it correctly, I feel that both at a spiritual and an intellectual level, it requires a certain degree of practice, maturity, and other things are involved in it. So it's fantastic. So anyway, whenever somebody tells that Gita says this, first question I ask is that please tell me which sloka is telling this. Then I can answer you. Because you might think that the Gita is saying this. I might read the sloka and find a different meaning out of it in the context of the other verses.
Okay.
Because it's not that one verse has to be taken out of context. There's a reason why he says all. He speaks of moksha, I think, in the 4th or 5th chapter. But he doesn't stop the Gita there, no? He could have just said, Arjuna, attain moksha, everything is over. Now, after that also there are other things going on.
I think this is the end of the episode.
All right.
Is there anything we've missed out on, sir?
On Jyotish.
Anything that you'd like to mention?
Learn Jyotish, respect Jyotish, do not abuse Jyotish. A lot of people abuse Jyotish. Abuse of Jyotish is every day morning wake up and see what is there in my horoscope. That's an abuse of the Vidya. It's a very powerful Vidya. It is more powerful than intuitions and other things. I've seen people with intuitions. They're good. But if you have trust on Jyotish, it's a Vidya. That Vidya has to come to you. Once it comes to you, then, and you respect that Vidya by not being frivolous about it. Do not just open your chart just like that randomly, ya koi dost aake bol raha hai. No. Earlier times, the astrologers who were really careful, they were also deeply spiritual. So they would, specific days, they'll sit, they'd expect the person who is coming to come with a certain degree of calmness. You take a bath and like you go to a spiritual place like that. You just didn't wake up and kuch phone karke ye nahi. And those days it used to happen that you have to be physically present in front of the astrologer, because today the phones and all are there. It's so powerful an art. I don't call it a science, it's an art. So powerful an art. The way you come into the room, the way you sit, which part of the body you are touching, by that only already I have an understanding which graha is influencing you. If I am good with my knowledge of the basics and if I have some blessings of the deities. Then there is another part, I forgot to mention this, there is another astrology which is very, very powerful. It's called the Deva Prashna. It's down in south, it's quite popular, in north it's very rare. Deva Prashna means how do you know the will of a deity in a temple?
How do you know the will of a deity in a temple?
Yes. You can know that definitely. There's a huge astrological exercise that is done. Not everybody can do it. People who are trained in it can do it. Deva Prashna, they call it. It can go on for days.
You mean a particular temple? What is that temple's purpose?
No.
Then?
The Devata in the temple, if you go, say you go to Tirupati, there's Lord Venkateshwara inside. If you go to Kashi Vishweshwara inside, what do you think is there? Just a Vigraha? No, there is a deity present there.
And what is the deity thinking?
What is the deity want? What is his or her will? And in South, it is very commonly done in great temples. And everything you can ask. You may even ask a lot of questions you may put. And that questions will tell you various answers to what to do, what not to do. I know a specific case of an individual, friend of mine. They had a temple and I think they were Vaishnavas. So this is very interesting. I love this episode. So they had some things were going on. So they invited one of the most knowledgeable people and one of the most advanced people to do a Deva Prashna. So he came with his team and all that, and he sits there. It's a Vaishnava setting. They're all Vaishnavas and all that. And there's this small boy. So he just calls that boy and says that randomly, take a name of the god you like best. And this boy says Shiva. Who knows why he says Shiva? Everybody is like little stunned because it's completely Vaishnava. They don't engage with other deities. And then the Deva Prashna starts. One after the other, from that point. It's like a nimitta, it's a sign. Because they started with certain kinds of, they have their own, so people who do engage in these type of Jyotisha are spiritual people. Ordinary Jyotishas cannot do these things. Okay. So as the Deva Prashna keeps going on, he finds out more and more about Shiva. It's turning out Shiva, and then says that in your family there is some Shiva temple that is there which is being neglected, and that is causing all these issues. The deity is not happy. Then they found that yes, there was a Shiva temple that was given, they were given to take care of, which was not taken care properly and neglected. And then they built certain things based on the Prashna, certain tanks, a couple of other things, specific pujas and all were done, and the issues started getting all resolved and things like that. Deva Prashna is a way to know the will of the deity in the temple.
Cross the boundary of this universe.
No, it is more or less. So what is a deity in a temple? A devata, see, deities, gods. We have Shiva in the universe, but we also have the Jyotirlingas. So a portion of Shiva's energy, which is as divine, same tattva, comes and resides there for the benefit of humanity. Okay, it resides in the Shiva Linga and we do worship of it, we benefit from it. Within a certain geographical area, it will have its influence. Because the cosmic Shiva, out of his own kindness, he comes in, because not everybody can connect to that Shiva. Na? So he comes in the Jyotirlingas and the other places with tremendous amount of power so that ordinary people can benefit from there. But the power has still some geographical limitations within which it works. Okay. In fact, having temples of deities who are worshipped in certain places, built in the right manner, and it cements sort of the positive energy of that place and ensures that negativity or things are reduced.
I just wanted this to be an astrology 101.
Right.
For people to kind of understand what's going on in Eastern astrology, because there's a big upsurge in the popularity of Western astrology. And I think people from all over the world do turn to India when we talk about these metaphysical subjects. Right. So I hope that this piece that we've created finds its way to the rest of the world as well. So
hope so.
Do you think we did justice to?
Yeah, at least at the starting point, it's good.
Like this is the ABCs of astrology.
Yeah.
Rajarshi Nandy, sir, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to another episode with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So that was the episode for today. I want to make a lot more episodes about astrology. So if you have guest recommendations, please let me know. Tell me what you thought about this slightly hatke TRS episode. There are more episodes with Rajarshi Nandy that will be released very, very soon. So stay tuned for some more epic TRS episodes. And please keep sending in your guest suggestions. We'll be back very soon, everyone.